cold concrete, darkness, the metallic taste of blood. Megan Turner wakes chained in a basement she can't remember entering, her body skeletal, her mind fracturing under months of torture. Then, chaos. Gunfire, screaming. The door explodes inward. A man stands silhouetted in blinding light, Franco Ravellini, his face carved from stone and fury. He doesn't ask if she's okay. He cuts the chain with one word. But when Megan collapses into his arms, gasping for air she forgot existed, she realizes her rescuer isn't salvation. He's something far more dangerous. Stick around until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Psych. The first thing Megan felt was cold. Not the kind that made you shiver and reach for a blanket. This was the cold that lived in your bones, that turned your blood sluggish and your thoughts into static. She'd stopped shivering weeks ago, maybe months. Time didn't exist down here. Just the drip of water somewhere in the dark, the rattle of the chain when she moved, and the slow erosion of everything she used to be. Her wrists were raw. The metal cuff had worn through skin weeks ago, leaving behind angry red tissue that wept and crusted over in cycles. She'd tried to keep track of days by counting the times a thin strip of light appeared beneath the door. Sunrise, she assumed, but eventually the numbers blurred together and she gave up. 20, 50, 100? Didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the next breath, and sometimes even that felt negotiable. Megan Turner, 28, registered nurse. She repeated it to herself like a mantra, clinging to the facts before they dissolved completely. She had an apartment in the city, or used to. A cat named Felix, who was probably dead by now, or adopted by a neighbor who'd gotten tired of the meowing. She had a best friend named Sophie, who texted too much, and a mother 2 states away who called every Sunday. Had. Past tense felt safer now. The basement smelled like rot and rust, and something else she couldn't name, something animal and wrong. The floor was unfinished concrete, pocked with old stains she didn't let herself think about. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, controlled by someone upstairs. It had been dark for hours now. Or days. She wasn't sure anymore. Her stomach had stopped hurting from hunger sometime last week. Now it was just a hollow ache, background noise she barely registered. The water bucket in the corner was half full. She rationed it carefully, 3 sips a day, but her hand shook so badly now that half of it ended up on the floor. She heard footsteps above. Heavy, uneven. His footsteps. Megan's heart kicked into a sick, lurching rhythm. She pushed herself into the corner, chain rattling, and pulled her knees to her chest. The metal cut into her ankle. She'd long since torn through the fabric of her scrubs, but the pain was distant, unimportant. The footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs. A long pause. Then the lock turned. The door opened. Light flooded down the stairs. Not the bulb overhead, but the harsh white glow from the hallway above. Megan squeezed her eyes shut, the brightness like knives after so long in the dark. She heard him descending, each step deliberate, unhurried. Megan. His voice was soft. Always soft. Like he was coaxing a frightened animal. She didn't respond. Didn't look up. She'd learned early on that engagement only prolonged things. I brought you something. The smell hit her first. Bread, maybe, or soup. Her stomach clenched involuntarily, saliva flooding her mouth. She hated herself for it, hated that her body still betrayed her like this. Aldrich Ravellini crouched in front of her, close enough that she could see the polished leather of his shoes, the crisp cuff of his pants. He set a tray on the floor between them. Soup. A roll. Water in a real glass, not the plastic bucket. You need to eat, he said gently. You're wasting away. Megan kept her eyes on the floor, on the cracks in the concrete, on anything but him. I know you're angry, Aldrich continued, his tone patient, understanding. I know this isn't ideal, but you'll see. Eventually, you'll understand. I did this for you, Megan, to keep you safe. Safe. The word almost made her laugh. Would have if she'd had the energy. You don't have to be afraid, he said. I'd never hurt you. You know that. She did know that. In his twisted, rotted-out version of reality, this was protection. This was love. He'd told her as much the night he dragged her down here, his hands gentle even as they locked the cuff around her ankle, his voice soothing even as he explained that the world outside was too dangerous, that people would try to take her away from him, that she was his and he was going to keep her safe no matter what it took. 3 months ago, or maybe 4, Megan had turned him down at a hospital charity event. A polite refusal. He'd asked her to dinner. She'd said no, cited a busy schedule, smiled apologetically. Standard interaction, forgettable. Except Aldrich Ravellini didn't forget. And he didn't accept no. Eat, he said again, pushing the tray closer. Please. When she didn't move, he sighed. Not angry, just disappointed. Then he stood, brushed off his knees, and walked back toward the stairs. I'll check on you tomorrow, he said. Try to keep your strength up. I hate seeing you like this. The door closed. The lock turned. Darkness swallowed the room again. Megan waited until the footsteps faded completely before she moved. Her hands shook as she reached for the soup, brought it to her lips, drank it down too fast. It burned her throat, but she didn't care. The roll followed, dry and tasteless, but she choked it down anyway. Survival had become automatic, mechanical. She didn't want to survive, not anymore, but her body refused to quit. Some nights she tried to remember what the sky looked like. She couldn't. The explosion came 3 days later. Or maybe it was 3 hours. Megan had lost the thread entirely by then. She was drifting in and out of consciousness, the line between sleep and waking gone hazy and irrelevant, when the first sound cut through the fog. Shouting, upstairs. Not Aldrich's voice, multiple voices, overlapping, angry. Then, crack, glass shattering. Megan's eyes snapped open. She pushed herself upright, chain scraping across concrete, her pulse suddenly loud in her ears. More shouting, running footsteps. Something heavy hitting the floor above her head, hard enough to rain dust down from the ceiling. Gunfire. Sharp, deafening. A burst of 3, then silence, then another volley. Megan pressed herself into the corner, heart hammering, hands clamped over her ears. This wasn't real, couldn't be real. She was hallucinating. Fever dream, breakdown. She'd finally snapped, and now her brain was... The basement door exploded inward, not opened, exploded. The wood splintered, the lock tearing free from the frame, and light, God, light, flooded down the stairs like a physical force. Megan threw her arm across her face, gasping, blinded, her retinas screaming. Footsteps. Fast. Controlled. A figure appeared at the top of the stairs, backlit by the hallway beyond. Tall, broad-shouldered, radiating an authority so sharp it felt like violence. Franco Ravellini didn't run down the stairs. He descended them with the kind of control that suggested he'd already won, that the chaos upstairs was over and dealt with and no longer worth his attention. 2 men flanked him, dark suits, weapons drawn, but Franco himself was unarmed, didn't need to be. He stopped 3 feet from Megan and went completely still. For a long moment he just looked at her. His face was unreadable, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes, a jaw set so tight it could have been carved from marble. But beneath the stillness, something burned. Not pity, not shock. Fury, cold, precise, and absolutely lethal. Get the chain off, Franco said quietly. One of the men moved forward immediately, producing a pair of bolt cutters from God knew where. The metal cuff around Megan's ankle snapped open with a sound like a gunshot. She flinched, her hands flying up instinctively, but the man stepped back just as quickly, giving her space. Franco crouched in front of her. Not close. He kept a careful distance, like he understood that proximity right now would be violence in itself. Megan Turner, he said. Not a question. She nodded, or tried to. Her neck barely moved. I'm Franco Ravellini. His voice was low, controlled. Aldrich's brother. Do you understand? Brother. The word hit like cold water. Megan's gaze snapped to his face, searching for resemblance. She found it, same dark eyes, same sharp bone structure, but where Aldrich's features held softness, a boyish charm that had fooled her once, Franco's were all hard edges. No warmth, no pretense. He's upstairs, Franco continued. Restrained. You're safe. Safe. That word again. It tasted like ash. Can you stand? Megan wasn't sure. She hadn't stood in weeks, maybe longer. But Franco was watching her with an expression that wasn't quite patience and wasn't quite expectation, just a flat clinical assessment. And something stubborn in her refused to appear weak in front of this man. She pushed herself up. Her legs buckled immediately. The world tilted, gravity pulling her sideways. And then Franco's hands were on her arms, firm, steadying, impersonal. He held her upright until her knees locked, then let go. We're leaving, he said. Megan's vision swam. Where? Somewhere secure. Franco glanced at one of his men. Marco. Help her. Marco stepped forward, offering an arm. Megan took it, her fingers barely managing to grip his sleeve, and together they moved toward the stairs. Each step felt impossible. Her legs were shaking so badly she thought they'd give out entirely, but Marco kept her upright, his pace slow and measured. Franco was already at the top of the stairs, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian, giving orders, coordinating. His voice never rose above conversational, but the words had the snap of commands that wouldn't be questioned. Megan made it halfway up before she had to stop. Her lungs burned. Her vision was graying at the edges. Marco tightened his grip, murmuring something in Italian, reassurance maybe, and she forced herself to keep moving. The house upstairs was chaos. Broken furniture, shattered glass, scorch marks on the walls. 3 bodies on the floor. Aldrich's men, Megan assumed, and blood tracking across the expensive hardwood. The front door hung open, cold night air pouring through. Aldrich was on his knees in the center of the room, zip-tied, 2 men with guns standing over him. His face was bruised, bleeding from a split lip. But when he saw Megan, his expression brightened. "Megan," his voice cracked. "Thank God. Franco, let her go. She's—" Franco's fist connected with Aldrich's jaw before he finished the sentence. The impact was surgical. Precise. Aldrich's head snapped to the side and he went down hard, hitting the floor with a wet crunch. He didn't get up. Franco straightened, shaking out his hand. His expression hadn't changed, still flat, still controlled. "Get him out of my sight," he said. The 2 men hauled Aldrich up and dragged him toward the back of the house. He was conscious. Megan could hear him groaning, but he didn't resist, didn't speak again. Franco turned to Megan. "Can you walk to the car?" She nodded. Wasn't sure it was true, but she nodded anyway. Outside, the night was cold and sharp and clean. Megan dragged in a breath and nearly collapsed from the shock of it. Air that didn't taste like mildew and despair. Air that moved, that carried the scent of rain and asphalt and city. Her knees buckled again, but Marco caught her, guided her toward the black SUV idling at the curb. The door opened. Megan climbed in, her body moving on autopilot. The interior was leather and warmth and soft lighting. She sank into the seat and closed her eyes. Franco slid in beside her. Hospital or estate? It took Megan a moment to realize he was talking to her. What? "Do you want a hospital?" Franco repeated, his tone flat. "Or my estate? I have a private doctor on staff." Megan's mind was still catching up. Hospital meant questions, police, reports. Her mother, Sophie. The wreckage of her entire life laid out under fluorescent lights for strangers to dissect. "Estate," she whispered. Franco nodded once. "Drive." The SUV pulled away from the curb. Megan watched the house disappear through the tinted window. The place she'd thought she'd die in, receding into the dark like it had never existed at all. She should have felt relief, gratitude, something. Instead, she felt nothing. Just cold. Just empty. Franco didn't speak during the drive. He sat beside her in silence, his gaze fixed on the window, his posture rigidly controlled. Once, Megan caught him looking at her, a quick, assessing glance, but he said nothing. Offered nothing. When the estate gates appeared, Megan barely registered them. Tall iron, security cameras, floodlights cutting through the dark. The SUV passed through without slowing, winding up a long driveway lined with trees. The house at the end was a massive, modern, glass and steel, cold and beautiful in equal measure. Franco climbed out first. A woman appeared in the doorway, older, gray-haired, her face soft with worry. She rushed down the steps, speaking rapid Italian, but Franco raised a hand and she stopped. "Lucia," he said quietly. "Guest room. Doctor's already on the way." Lucia nodded, her gaze shifting to Megan. Her expression crumpled just for a second before she smoothed it out and offered a gentle smile. "Come, tesoro," she murmured, reaching for Megan's hand. "Let's get you inside." Megan let herself be led. Up the steps, through a foyer that was all marble and soft lighting, down a hallway that smelled like lavender and lemon polish. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment had been. King bed, soft cream linens, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking dark gardens. Lucia guided her to the bed. "Sit, please. Doctor will be here soon." Megan sat. The mattress was soft enough that she sank into it, and for a moment the sensation was so foreign, so impossibly gentle, that her throat closed up. Lucia disappeared, returning moments later with a glass of water and a blanket. She draped the blanket over Megan's shoulders, pressed the water into her hands. "Drink, Cara. Slowly." Megan obeyed. The water was cold and clean and tasted like nothing, and she had to stop herself from gulping it down. Doctor is 5 minutes away, Lucia said softly. You are safe now. Franco will not let anything happen to you. Safe. That word, again. Megan looked down at her hands, skeletal, bruised, the nails cracked and dirty. She couldn't remember what they used to look like. The doctor arrived exactly 5 minutes later. An older man, white coat, wire-rimmed glasses. He introduced himself as Dr. Conte, asked Megan a series of calm, clinical questions she answered on autopilot, then began the examination. Vitals, weight, fluids. He cleaned the wounds on her wrists and ankle, applied antibiotic ointment, wrapped them in clean gauze, ordered blood work, suggested an IV for dehydration. Megan let it happen, let herself be poked and prodded and assessed like a specimen. It was easier than thinking. When Dr. Conte finally left, Lucia returned with soup, real soup, not the watery broth Aldrich had brought, and bread and fruit. Megan ate slowly, mechanically, until Lucia gently took the bowl away. Rest now, she said. I'll be just down the hall if you need anything. The door closed. The room fell silent. Megan sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the windows, at the dark gardens beyond. She should sleep, should shower, should feel something. Instead, she just sat there, cold, empty, alive. Franco stood in his office, staring at the security footage from Aldrich's house. The basement, the chain, the girl, woman, curled in the corner like something feral. He'd seen a lot in his life. Violence, cruelty, the kind of rot that festered in men when they stopped pretending to be human. But this was different. This was his blood, his brother. Franco's jaw tightened. Aldrich was downstairs now, zip-tied to a chair in the wine cellar, guarded by 2 men Franco trusted implicitly. He'd deal with that problem soon. Not tonight. Tonight he needed to think, to plan, to figure out how deep this rot went and how much of it would bleed back onto him. But first, he needed to understand what the hell had driven Aldrich to this. The footage didn't answer that. It just showed a man descending into madness one day at a time, his obsession calcifying into something monstrous. Franco had known Aldrich was unstable, volatile, prone to fixation. But this was beyond repair. His phone buzzed. Marco. Doctor's finished. She's stable. Dehydrated, malnourished, but no life-threatening injuries. Franco typed back, Good. Keep someone on the door. No one in or out without my clearance. Understood. He set the phone down and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. Drank it in one swallow. The burn didn't help. Megan Turner. He'd pulled her file the moment Marco confirmed her identity. Hospital records, work history, social media. Nothing remarkable. Just a woman living her life, working her shifts, going home to an empty apartment. No connections to his world. No reason for Aldrich to fixate on her except that she'd said no. And Aldrich couldn't handle no. Franco poured another drink. Outside, the estate was silent, locked down, secured. But silence didn't mean safety. It just meant the threat was waiting. Aldrich wasn't working alone. Couldn't be. The house had been too well defended, the operation too coordinated. Someone had been feeding him resources. Intel, money. Franco would find them. He always did. But first, he needed to figure out what to do with the woman upstairs. She was a liability, a witness, a complication he didn't need, but she was also his responsibility now. Franco finished the second drink, set the glass down, and walked to the window. The garden stretched out below, dark and manicured and empty. Somewhere in the house, Megan Turner was lying in a guest bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember what it felt like to be human. Franco understood that feeling better than he cared to admit. He turned away from the window and pulled out his phone. Time to start asking questions. Starting with Aldrich. Megan woke to sunlight. Not the thin, sickly strip beneath a basement door, but actual sunlight, warm and golden, pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows like something out of a dream she'd forgotten how to have. For 3 full seconds, she didn't move, just lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the light to disappear, for the cold concrete to press back into her spine, for the dream to collapse. It didn't. Her body ached, deep, bone-level exhaustion that made even breathing feel like work. The IV line tugged at her arm when she shifted. Dr. Conte must have set it up while she slept, and the clean white bandages on her wrists felt alien, foreign. She pushed herself upright slowly, every muscle screaming. The guest room looked exactly as it had last night. Cream linen, soft lighting, a vase of fresh flowers on the dresser that someone, Lucia probably, had placed there while Megan was unconscious. The door was closed. No lock on the inside that she could see, but then again, she hadn't tried it yet. Megan's gaze drifted to the windows. The gardens outside were sprawling, meticulously maintained. Stone paths, hedges, a fountain in the distance, beautiful, sterile, a prison with better lighting. She stood, legs shaking, and made it 3 steps before her knees buckled. She caught herself on the dresser, breathing hard, nails digging into the wood. Her reflection stared back from the mirror above. Hollow eyes, gaunt cheekbones, skin stretched too tight over bone. She looked like a corpse, felt like one too. A knock at the door made her flinch. "Kara?" Lucia's voice soft and careful. "May I come in?" Megan's throat worked. "Yeah." The door opened. Lucia entered carrying a tray, tea, toast, something that smelled like eggs. She took one look at Megan, gripping the dresser, and set the tray down immediately. "You should not be standing," she said, moving to Megan's side. "Come. Sit." "I'm fine." "You are not fine." Lucia's tone was gentle but firm. She guided Megan back to the bed, one hand steadying her elbow. "Sit. Eat. Doctor's orders." Megan sank onto the mattress. Lucia arranged the tray on her lap, scrambled eggs, dry toast, herbal tea. The smell alone made Megan's stomach clench, but she picked up the fork anyway. Forced herself to take a bite. It tasted like cardboard. Everything tasted like cardboard now. Lucia watched her for a moment, then moved to the windows and drew the curtains halfway, dimming the light. "Better?" Megan nodded, chewing mechanically. "Dr. Conte will return this afternoon," Lucia continued, folding her hands. "He wants to monitor your recovery. In the meantime, if you need anything at all, you press this button." She gestured to a small panel on the nightstand. "I will come immediately." "Where's Franco?" The question came out harsher than Megan intended. Lucia didn't flinch. "Signor Avellini is handling business," she said carefully. "He asked me to inform you that he will speak with you when you are ready." Business. Right. Because a man like Franco Ravellini didn't just rescue people out of the goodness of his heart. There was always an angle. Always a cost. Megan set the fork down. "What does he want from me?" Lucia's expression softened. "To help you recover, tesoro. Nothing more. Nobody does something like this for nothing." "Franco is not nobody." Lucia's voice carried a quiet certainty. "And you are not a transaction. Eat, please. You need your strength." Megan wanted to argue, but exhaustion was already dragging her back down. She managed 2 more bites before nausea forced her to stop. Lucia took the tray without comment, setting it aside. "Rest now," she said. "I will check on you in a few hours." The door closed softly behind her. Megan lay back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. Her mind felt sluggish, thoughts slipping through her fingers before she could hold on to them. She should be planning, figuring out what came next. But all she could manage was the slow, mechanical act of breathing, in, out, alive. She closed her eyes and let the darkness take her again. Franco sat across from Aldrich in the wine cellar, a single overhead bulb casting harsh shadows across his brother's bruised face. Aldrich looked small, diminished, zip-tied to a metal chair, dried blood crusting his split lip, one eye swollen nearly shut. He'd stopped struggling hours ago. Now he just sat there, head lolling, breathing shallow. Franco hadn't said a word yet, hadn't needed to. Silence was a weapon he wielded better than most men wielded fists. Finally, Aldrich spoke. His voice was thick, slurred. "You gonna kill me?" Franco didn't answer, just watched. "That's what this is, right?" Aldrich tried to laugh, but it came out wet and broken. "The concerned big brother routine. You drag me down here, tie me up, and then, what, put a bullet in my head? Make it look like an accident?" "You abducted a woman." Franco's voice was flat. "Chained her in a basement, starved her, for months. I was protecting her." Franco's hand shot out, gripping Aldrich's jaw hard enough to make bone creak. Aldrich gasped, eyes wide, but Franco didn't let go. "Don't," Franco said quietly. "Do not insult me with that bullshit." He released Aldrich's face and leaned back, fingers steepled. The control was back, ironclad, but beneath it something darker simmered. "Start talking," Franco said. "Who else knew?" Aldrich's good eye darted away. "Nobody. Wrong answer." Franco stood, circling the chair slowly. You had men, resources, security systems. Someone funded this, Aldrich. Someone helped you. Who? I don't. Franco grabbed the back of the chair and slammed it forward, the metal legs screeching against concrete. Aldrich lurched, choking on air, and Franco held him there, balanced on two legs, teetering, before letting the chair drop back. Aldrich gasped, coughing. Jesus, fuck. Names, Franco said. I handled it myself. Liar. I did. Aldrich's voice cracked. Look, I knew you'd try to stop me if you found out, so I kept it quiet. Used cash, hired freelancers. Nobody in the family knew. Franco studied him for a long moment. Aldrich was many things, volatile, obsessive, weak, but he wasn't a good liar. Fear made him transparent. How long were you planning to keep her? Franco asked. Aldrich's jaw worked. As long as it took. For what? For her to understand. Aldrich's voice dropped, took on that pleading, desperate edge Franco recognized from childhood. She just needed time, Franco. Time to see that I was right, that I could take care of her, that we belonged together. She said no to a date. One time. She didn't mean it. Aldrich's conviction was terrifying in its sincerity. She was scared, confused, but I could see it in her eyes. She wanted me to pursue her, to prove I was serious. Franco felt something cold settle in his chest. You're delusional. I'm in love. You're sick. Franco turned away, disgust twisting his expression. And you dragged our name through the mud doing it. Our name? Aldrich laughed bitterly. You think anyone gives a shit about the Ravellini name anymore? We're legitimate now, right? Clean business, respectable. You made sure of that. I built something, Franco said quietly. Something that doesn't end with us in prison or a grave. You want to tear that down over a woman who doesn't want you? She will want me. She just needs... Franco spun, grabbed Aldrich by the throat, and slammed him back against the chair. Aldrich choked, clawing at Franco's hand, but Franco didn't let go. Listen to me, Franco said, his voice low and lethal. You destroyed that woman. You took everything from her. Her freedom, her dignity, her mind. And you call it love. That's not love. That's ownership. And I will burn every fucking thing you've built before I let you walk away from this. He released Aldrich's throat. Aldrich gasped, coughing violently. You're staying down here, Franco continued, straightening his cuffs. Under guard, until I figure out what to do with you. You can't keep me here forever. Watch me. Franco turned toward the stairs. She'll never forgive you, Aldrich rasped behind him. You think you're her hero? You're just another man controlling her life. She'll see that eventually. Franco paused on the bottom step. Didn't turn around. Maybe, he said, but at least she'll be alive to hate me. He climbed the stairs and locked the door behind him. 3 days passed in a blur of sleep and small, humiliating victories. Megan managed to walk to the bathroom without collapsing. Managed to keep down solid food. Managed to shower, though Lucia had to help her, and the sight of her own skeletal frame in the mirror afterward made her vomit into the sink. Dr. Conte visited daily, checking vitals, adjusting the IV fluids, prescribing supplements. He didn't ask questions, didn't push, just did his job with quiet efficiency and left. Lucia was constant. She brought meals, fresh clothes, books. Megan didn't have the energy to read. She never asked about the basement, never mentioned Aldrich, just offered steady, undemanding presence. Franco, by contrast, was a ghost. Megan saw him exactly once, a brief glimpse through the guest room door as he passed in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, expression carved from stone. He didn't look in, didn't acknowledge her, just kept walking. She told herself she didn't care, told herself it was better this way. But on the fourth morning, when Lucia arrived with breakfast, Megan finally asked, "Where is he?" Lucia paused, setting the tray down. "Signor Ravellini?" "Yeah." "Working." "On what?" Lucia's hands folded carefully. "That is not my place to say, Cara. He's avoiding me. He is giving you space to heal." "Bullshit." Megan's voice came out sharper than intended. "He pulled me out of that basement, brought me here, and now he won't even look at me. Why?" Lucia met her gaze steadily. Perhaps because he does not know what to say. He seemed pretty comfortable giving orders before. "Orders are easy," Lucia said quietly. "Apologies are not." Megan blinked. Apologies? For what? For his brother. For what Aldrich did. Lucia's expression was sad. Franco blames himself, he always does. That's not his fault. No, but he will carry it anyway. Lucia adjusted the blanket on the bed. It is who he is. Megan looked away, jaw tight. She didn't want to feel sympathy for Franco Ravellini, didn't want to humanize the man who existed in the same dark world as Aldrich, who wielded violence like a scalpel and called it protection. But the alternative was worse, hating him for saving her. I want to see him, Megan said. Lucia hesitated. Are you certain? Yeah. I will ask. Franco appeared that evening. Megan heard his footsteps in the hall, measured, deliberate, and then the soft knock. She was sitting by the window, staring out at the gardens, when he entered. You wanted to see me? Megan turned. Franco stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. He looked tired. Not physically. His suit was immaculate, his posture perfect. But there was something in his eyes. A weight. Yeah, Megan said. I did. Franco stepped inside, leaving the door half open. A gesture of trust, maybe. Or just protocol. How are you feeling? He asked. Like shit. A flicker of something, amusement, surprise, crossed his face before vanishing. Dr. Conti says you're improving. Dr. Conti's a liar. Franco's mouth twitched, almost a smile. He's been with me for 15 years. If he says you're improving, you're improving. Megan folded her arms. Why are you avoiding me? The directness seemed to catch him off guard. Franco's gaze sharpened, assessing. Then he moved to the other window, standing with his back to her. I'm not avoiding you, he said. I'm giving you time. For what? To recover. To process. I don't need time. I need answers. Franco turned, his expression cooling. What do you want to know? Everything. Megan's voice was steady despite the way her hand shook. How you found me. Why you came. What you're planning to do with Aldrich. What happens to me when I'm recovered? She air-quoted the word bitterly. Franco was silent for a long moment. Then he moved to the chair opposite Megan and sat, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. Aldrich made a mistake, he began. 3 weeks ago, he used one of our family accounts to pay for construction on the house where he kept you. Renovations to the basement, soundproofing. My accountant flagged the transaction. I started digging. 3 weeks, Megan repeated, her stomach twisted. You knew for 3 weeks? I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what. Franco's voice was flat, factual. Aldrich's been erratic for years. Impulsive. I've had to clean up his messes before. Bar fights, gambling debts, women who threatened lawsuits. But this was different. The money was significant. The secrecy deliberate. So I kept digging. And? I found property records. Security footage from nearby traffic cameras showing Aldrich entering and leaving at odd hours. I sent Marco to surveil the house. Franco's jaw tightened. We saw him bring food down to the basement. Once we confirmed someone was being held, I moved. Megan's nails bit into her palms. You could have called the police. And have this become a media circus? Have Aldrich arrested, your name plastered across every news outlet, photographers camped outside your hospital room? Franco's tone was cold. No, this stays contained. You mean you protect your family name? I mean I protect you. The words came out harder than Franco seemed to intend. He exhaled slowly, reining himself back in. The police would have turned this into a spectacle. You would have been a victim for the rest of your life. Every job interview, every relationship, every time you Googled your own name, you'd see it. I'm giving you the option to walk away clean. Nothing about this is clean. No, Franco agreed. But it's private, and that's the best I can offer. Megan stared at him. Hated that part of her understood. Hated that he was right. What about Aldrich? She asked. He's contained, downstairs, under guard. You're keeping him here? For now. And then? Franco's expression went flat. That depends. On what? On whether anyone else was involved. Franco leaned back, his gaze never leaving hers. Aldrich's not smart enough to pull this off alone. Someone helped him, funded him. I need to know who. Megan's chest tightened. You think it's someone in your organization. I think it's someone close enough to know how to move money without raising flags. Franco's voice was quiet. And when I find them, they'll answer for it. The promise in those words was absolute. Megan believed him without question. "What happens to me?" she asked. "You stay here until you're strong enough to leave. Then you go wherever you want. New city, new name if you prefer. I'll arrange it. And if I don't want your help, then you walk out that door right now." Franco gestured toward the hallway. "No one's stopping you." Megan's throat closed. She wanted to call his bluff. Wanted to stand up, walk out, prove she didn't need his protection or his resources or his guilt-driven charity. But her legs were still shaking, her ribs still showed through her skin, and the world outside these walls, the world that contained reporters and questions and the wreckage of her old life, felt more terrifying than this sterile prison ever could. "I'm not ready," she whispered. Franco nodded once. "Then you stay." He stood, moving toward the door, paused with his hand on the frame. "For what it's worth," he said without turning around, "I'm sorry. For all of it." Then he was gone. Megan sat alone in the gathering dark, staring at the empty doorway. What? A week became 2. Megan's body slowly knit itself back together. The hollows in her cheeks filled in. The tremor in her hand steadied. She started walking the estate grounds with Lucia, short loops at first, then longer. The gardens were beautiful in a cold, controlled way. Every hedge trimmed, every path swept clean. No room for wildness. She met some of Franco's men in passing. Marco, who'd helped her from the basement, offered polite nods. A younger guy named Dante brought her books from Franco's personal library, thrillers mostly, which made Megan laugh darkly. Another man, older and scarred, simply watched her from doorways with an expression she couldn't read. Franco himself remained distant. She saw him at meals sometimes, brief, silent affairs where he ate quickly and left. He never initiated conversation, never asked how she was doing beyond the perfunctory check-ins Lucia relayed. It should have been a relief. It wasn't. On the 15th day, Megan cornered Lucia in the kitchen. "I want to do something," she said. Lucia looked up from the vegetables she was chopping. "Such as? Work. Help. Anything." Megan gestured vaguely. "I'm going insane sitting in that room." "You are recovering." "I'm recovered enough." Megan's voice was firm. "I'm a nurse, Lucia. I know my own limits, and right now my limit is boredom, not physical capacity." Lucia studied her for a long moment. Then she set down the knife. "There is a clinic," she said carefully, "in the East Wing, for the men. Minor injuries, illness, things that do not require a hospital visit. Franco keeps it staffed, but the doctor only comes twice a week." Megan's pulse quickened. "You're saying I could work there?" "I am saying I will ask Signor Ravellini if he is comfortable with the arrangement." Lucia's tone was cautious. "But understand, Cara, these men are not hospital patients. They are Franco's soldiers. Some have done terrible things. If that frightens you..." "It doesn't." Lucia raised an eyebrow. "I've seen terrible things," Megan said quietly. "I've been a terrible thing. A bunch of guys with bullet wounds doesn't scare me." Lucia's expression softened. "I will speak with him." Body. Franco's response came that evening, delivered via Marco. "Fine. She can use the clinic, but someone stays with her. Always." Megan started the next morning. The clinic was small, 2 examination rooms, a supply closet, a cramped office. Sterile and functional. The first patient was a man in his 40s with a badly wrapped hand. Megan unwrapped it, cleaned the wound, a deep gash across the palm, and stitched it closed while he gritted his teeth and didn't make a sound. "You're good at this," he said when she finished. Megan taped the bandage down. "It's my job." "Franco know you're working here?" He approved it. The man nodded slowly, something shifting in his expression. "Good. We need someone competent." Word spread quickly. By the end of the week, Megan had treated a dozen men, stitches, sprains. One case of pneumonia she insisted required actual antibiotics. Marco stayed posted outside the door during every appointment, silent and watchful, but he never interfered. It felt good. Useful. Like reclaiming a part of herself she'd thought was gone. On the 8th day, Franco appeared in the clinic doorway. Megan was restocking supplies, her back to the door. She heard his footsteps and turned. "You're doing well," Franco said. It wasn't a question. Megan shrugged. "I know what I'm doing." "The men respect you. They respect competence." Franco's mouth twitched. "Fair." He stepped inside, hands in his pockets, his gaze sweeping the room. "This wasn't what I expected." What did you expect? For you to want distance from all of this. He gestured vaguely. From me? Megan set down the box of gauze. Maybe I did, at first. And now? Now I'm tired of being afraid. The words came out steadier than she felt. I spent months in a basement waiting to die. I'm not doing that again. Not for Aldrich. Not for anyone. Franco's expression shifted, something like approval, though he didn't voice it. There's something you should know, he said. About Aldrich. Megan's stomach clenched. What? I've been interrogating him, slowly. He's starting to crack. Franco's voice was clinical. He mentioned a name, someone who provided logistical support. I'm still verifying, but if it's true, we have a problem. Who? One of my senior lieutenants, a man named Vincent Corso. The name meant nothing to Megan, but Franco's expression said enough. He's been with you a long time, she guessed. 15 years. Franco's jaw was tight. If he betrayed me, if he helped Aldrich do this, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? Franco met her gaze. The permanent kind. Megan should have been horrified, should have recoiled. Instead, she just nodded. Good, she said quietly. Franco blinked. Good? Yeah. Megan crossed her arms. If he helped Aldrich, he helped destroy my life. So, yeah, permanent consequences sound about right. For the first time since she'd met him, Franco smiled. It was small, brief, and didn't reach his eyes. But it was real. You're tougher than you look, he said. I have to be. The moment stretched. Franco looked like he wanted to say something else, but then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and whatever softness had crept into his expression vanished. I have to go, he said. But Megan, be careful. If Vincent realizes we're onto him, he'll move, and I don't know who else might be involved. You think there's more? I think betrayal is never isolated. Franco's voice was grim. Watch yourself. He left. Megan stood alone in the clinic, her pulse racing. The attack came 2 nights later. Megan was in her room reading when the first gunshot cracked through the air. She froze, the book slipping from her hands. For a single terrible moment, she was back in the basement. Darkness, cold, the sound of violence above. But then training kicked in. She rolled off the bed, hit the floor, and crawled toward the door. More gunshots, shouting, the sharp crack of breaking glass. Marco burst into the room, gun drawn. Get up! Now! Megan scrambled to her feet. What's happening? Breach, east perimeter. Marco grabbed her arm, dragged her into the hallway. Panic room, move. They ran. The hallway was chaos. Men with weapons rushing toward the sound of gunfire. Lucia herding staff into interior rooms, alarms blaring. Marco shoved Megan through a doorway she'd never noticed before, into a narrow stairwell leading down. Stay here, he ordered. Don't open this door for anyone but me or Franco. Wait. But Marco was already gone, the heavy steel door slamming shut behind him. Megan stood in the dark, heart hammering, and listened to the world above tear itself apart. The panic room was small, reinforced walls, a single monitor showing security feeds. Megan stared at the screens, watching Franco's men engage with attackers in the gardens. Muzzle flashes, bodies dropping, chaos. Then she saw him. Aldrich, on one of the feeds, moving through the east wing with 3 armed men. He wasn't restrained, wasn't zip-tied. He was leading them. Megan's blood went cold. This wasn't an attack, it was a rescue, and Aldrich was using it as cover for something worse. She watched the feed, her mind racing. The attackers weren't heading for Franco. They were heading for the clinic. Megan's breath caught. They thought she'd be there. Thought she'd be alone, vulnerable, easy to take. But she wasn't. She was here, and Franco's men were about to walk into a trap. Megan grabbed the radio mounted on the wall. Her hand shook as she keyed the mic. Marco, can you hear me? Static. Marco. Copy. What? The clinic. They're targeting the clinic. It's a diversion. More static. Then Marco's voice, clear. Say again? Aldrich's group is heading for the clinic. They think I'm there, but the real target... Megan's mind clicked pieces into place. The real target is Franco. They're drawing your men east so they can hit him from the west. A pause. Then, how do you know? Because that's what I'd do. Megan's voice was steady now. Where's Franco? West office, coordinating. Shit. The line went dead. Megan stared at the screens, watching Aldrich's group change direction mid-movement, heading west, toward Franco. She slammed her hand against the door, but it didn't budge. Reinforced. Locked from the outside. She was trapped, and Franco was about to die. Megan slammed her shoulder against the panic room door for the third time, pain shooting down her arm. The steel didn't budge, didn't even vibrate. She was locked in a reinforced box while Franco walked into an ambush, and every second she wasted was another second closer to... The monitor flickered. Megan spun back to the screens. Aldrich's group had split, 2 men peeling off toward the clinic as planned, but Aldrich and the third moving with purpose through the west corridor. They knew the layout, knew exactly where Franco would be. This wasn't opportunistic. This was surgical. Megan's hands flew across the control panel, searching for anything, camera controls, door release, something. Her fingers found a switch labeled Emergency Override, and she flipped it without thinking. Nothing happened. Come on, come on! A mechanical click echoed through the small space, then a hiss of hydraulics. The door cracked open half an inch. Megan didn't wait. She shoved it the rest of the way and bolted up the stairs, her legs still weak but adrenaline carrying her forward. The main floor was chaos, gunfire echoing from multiple directions, smoke pouring from somewhere in the east wing, men shouting orders in Italian and English. She grabbed the first person she saw, a young guy clutching an assault rifle, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. "Where's Franco?" she demanded. The guy blinked at her, dazed. "West office, but you need to get back to B." Megan was already running. The west corridor was empty. Wrong kind of empty. The kind that happened right before violence. Her nurse's instincts screamed at her to turn around, find cover, let the professionals handle it. But Franco had saved her life, had given her shelter when he could have dumped her at a hospital and walked away clean. She wasn't hiding anymore. The office door was closed. Megan pressed herself against the wall beside it, breathing hard. She could hear voices inside. Franco's, low and controlled, and someone else. Multiple someone else's. "Told you this would happen," an unfamiliar voice was saying. Older, smooth. "You pushed too hard, Franco. Made too many enemies." "Vincent." Franco's voice was ice. "I should have known." Vincent Corso. The lieutenant Franco had mentioned, the betrayal he'd suspected. Megan's stomach dropped. "You made it easy," Vincent continued. "All that self-righteous restructuring, going legitimate. You neutered the family, Franco, turned us into fucking accountants. People got restless, started listening to alternatives. Alternatives like Aldrich? Aldrich has vision, ambition, things you used to have before you went soft." A pause. Then Franco's voice, quieter now, lethal. "And the girl? Collateral damage." Vincent's tone was almost apologetic. "Aldrich wanted her. I helped him get her. Simple supply and demand." "You helped him torture an innocent woman for months. I helped him pursue what he wanted. What's the difference between that and half the shit you've done? You think your hands are clean? You think walking away from the life makes you a saint?" "I think," Franco said, "it makes me better than you." Footsteps, movement. Megan pressed herself flatter against the wall, pulse hammering in her ears. She needed a weapon, needed backup, needed... The office door exploded outward. Franco came through it backwards, blood streaming from a gash across his temple. Vincent's gun trained on his chest. 2 more men flanked Vincent, professional, armed, faces Megan didn't recognize. Not Franco's people. "Down," Vincent ordered. "On your knees." Franco didn't move. Blood dripped from his jaw onto his collar, but his expression was carved from stone. "You won't walk out of here alive." "Neither will you." Vincent's finger tightened on the trigger. "But at least I'll die rich." Megan didn't think, just moved. She grabbed a bronze sculpture from the hallway table, some pretentious modern piece that weighed about 15 pounds, and swung it at the nearest guard's head. The impact was sickening, wet. The man went down hard, his weapon clattering across the marble floor. Vincent spun, gun swinging toward Megan, but Franco was already moving. He drove his elbow into Vincent's wrist, the gun discharging into the ceiling, then followed with a brutal uppercut that snapped Vincent's head back. The second guard raised his weapon. Franco dove, rolling, came up with the first guard's gun, and put 3 rounds center mass. The guard dropped. Vincent scrambled backward, clutching his bleeding mouth, and vanished around the corner. Franco turned to Megan, fury and something else, fear, flashing across his face. "What the fuck are you doing out here?" "Saving your ass, apparently. I told Marco to lock you in the..." "I got out." Megan's hands were shaking. Blood, someone else's blood, splattered across her borrowed shirt. Aldrich's here. He's using this as cover to extract himself. Franco's expression went flat. Where? East Wing last I saw. But Franco, Vincent said. I know what he said. Franco checked the gun's magazine, his movement sharp and efficient. How many with Aldrich? 3, maybe 4. Franco keyed his radio. Marco, West Office, Vincent's the leak. He's running. Lock down all exits and find me Aldrich Ravellini. Now. Static, then Marco's voice. Copy. We've got 2 hostiles down in the gardens. Dante's securing the east. Gunfire erupted over the radio. Shouting. Then silence. Marco? Franco's voice was calm. Too calm. Marco, respond. Nothing. Franco's jaw tightened. He grabbed Megan's arm, pulling her toward the nearest room. Stay here. Do not move until I come back. Like hell. Megan. He turned and the look in his eyes stopped her cold. Not anger, not fear. Something worse. Certainty. The kind that came right before someone did something they wouldn't come back from. If I don't make it out of this, there's a go bag in my office. Cash, passports, keys to a safe house in Vermont. Lucia knows where. You take it and you run. Understand? You're not dying tonight. We're all dying tonight. Franco's voice was flat. Question is how many we take with us. He released her arm and moved toward the sound of gunfire. Megan watched him disappear around the corner, her heart in her throat. Then she ignored his order completely and followed. Okay. The East Wing was a war zone. Bodies, Franco's men mostly, sprawled across the floor in pools of blood. Bullet holes peppered the walls. A fire had started somewhere, smoke thickening the air. Megan pulled her shirt over her mouth and nose, eyes watering, and kept moving. She found Marco slumped against a doorway, clutching his side. Blood seeped between his fingers, dark and steady. Jesus! Megan dropped beside him, hands already moving to assess the damage. Entry wound just below the ribs. No exit wound, bullet still inside. Marco, can you hear me? Marco's eyes focused on her with effort. Told you to stay in the panic room. Yeah, well, I'm bad at following orders. Megan pressed her hands over the wound, applying pressure. Marco hissed through his teeth. Where's Aldrich? Library. Barricaded. Marco coughed, blood flecking his lips. Franco went after him. Alone? Dante's dead. Luca too. Just Franco now. Megan's chest tightened. You need a hospital. No hospitals. Marco's hand closed over hers, surprisingly strong. You go. Help Franco. I'll manage. You'll bleed out. Then I bleed out. Marco's expression was grim. But Franco doesn't die alone. That's the deal. Megan wanted to argue, wanted to stay and stabilize him and do her goddamn job. But Marco was right. Franco was walking into a trap, outnumbered and outgunned, and every second she spent here was another second he might not have. She grabbed Marco's weapon, a Glock, safety already off, and checked the magazine. 12 rounds. She'd never fired a gun in her life. Safety's already off, Marco said, reading her face. Point, squeeze, don't pull. That's it? That's it. Megan stood, the gun heavy and foreign in her hand. Don't die while I'm gone. Marco's laugh turned into a wet cough. No promises. The library was at the end of the corridor, double doors closed but not locked. Megan approached slowly, gun raised the way she'd seen in movies, praying it was even remotely correct. She could hear voices inside, Aldrich's, high and frantic, and Franco's, low and controlled. She pressed her ear to the door. Your own brother, Aldrich was saying. You'd really kill me. Your own blood. You stopped being my brother the day you chained that woman in a basement. I loved her. You owned her. There's a difference. You don't understand. You've never understood. I understand you're sick, Aldrich. And I understand I'm the one who has to end this. A pause. Then Aldrich's voice, smaller now. Where is she? Where's Megan? Megan's breath caught. Safe, Franco said. Somewhere you'll never touch her again. I just wanted to apologize, to explain. If she'd just listen, she doesn't owe you shit. She owes me everything, Aldrich's voice cracked. I saved her. I took her away from that pathetic life, that meaningless existence. I gave her purpose. You gave her trauma. I gave her me. Megan pushed the door open. The library was massive, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace, leather chairs. Franco stood in the center, weapon trained on Aldrich, who was backed against the far wall. Blood streaked Aldrich's face from a gash across his forehead. His hands were raised, empty, but his eyes locked onto Megan the moment she entered, and his face transformed. Megan, the word came out broken, reverent. Oh, thank God! I knew you'd come. I knew you'd understand. Shut up, Megan said. Aldrich blinked. What? Shut up. Megan's voice was steady despite the way her hand shook around the gun. You don't get to talk to me. You don't get to explain. You don't get anything from me except this. You're a monster, and I hope you die knowing that the woman you loved thinks you're pathetic. Aldrich's expression crumpled. You don't mean that. You're confused. Franco's poisoned you against me. Franco saved my life. I saved your life. I took you somewhere safe, somewhere no one could hurt you. You were the one hurting me. Megan's voice rose, months of rage finally breaking through. Every day in that basement, every moment you made me think I'd die there. That was you, not some outside threat, not the world, you. I was protecting, you were owning, and now you've lost, completely, forever. Megan's finger moved to the trigger. So go ahead, keep talking. Give me a reason. Franco moved between them smoothly, his weapon never wavering from Aldrich. Megan, lower the gun. No. Lower it. Now. He deserves to die. Yes. Franco's voice was calm, absolute. But not by your hand. You pull that trigger, you carry it forever. I won't let you do that. I can handle it. I know you can. Franco's eyes met hers briefly. But you don't have to. For a long moment, Megan stood frozen. The gun was heavy. Her finger was on the trigger. Aldrich was right there, 3 pounds of pressure away from never hurting anyone again. But Franco was right too. She'd spent months being powerless, letting Aldrich control her fate, define her existence, reduce her to nothing. Killing him wouldn't change that. Wouldn't erase what he'd done. It would just make her like him. Megan lowered the gun. Aldrich sagged with relief. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. I knew you. Franco shot him. 3 times, center mass, clinical, professional. Aldrich hit the floor, eyes wide with shock, blood pooling beneath him. His mouth worked soundlessly for a moment, then stopped. Megan stared at the body, waiting for horror to hit, for regret, for something. She felt nothing, just cold, just empty. Are you okay? Franco asked quietly. Megan nodded, couldn't speak yet. Franco keyed his radio. Marco, status. Static. Then Marco's weak voice. Still. Breathing. East corridor? Clear. Vincent's gone, probably headed for the garages. Copy. Stay put. Help's coming. Franco turned to Megan. Can you help him? While I finish this? Yeah. Megan's voice came out hoarse. Yeah, I can do that. Franco moved toward the door, then paused. Megan? She looked up. Thank you, he said, for the warning. You saved my life. Then he was gone. Megan found Marco where she'd left him, pale and sweating, but still conscious. She tore open his shirt, packed the wound with gauze from a first aid kit on the wall, and wrapped it tight enough to slow the bleeding. Not ideal, not enough, but it would keep him alive until real help arrived. Aldrich? Marco asked through gritted teeth. Dead. Marco nodded. Good. Franco went after Vincent. He'll catch him. Marco's eyes were sliding closed. Always does. Stay awake, Marco. Come on. Focus on me. But Marco was already slipping away, his breathing shallow and rapid. Shock setting in. Megan grabbed his face, forcing his eyes open. Marco, you don't get to die on me, not after everything. You hear me? His eyes focused briefly, a weak smile. Yes, ma'am. Then he was out. Megan pressed her fingers to his neck. Pulse present but weak, breathing irregular. He needed surgery, needed blood, needed things she couldn't provide in a bullet-riddled hallway. She grabbed the radio. This is Megan Turner. I need medical support. East corridor, now. Marco's down GSW to the abdomen, going into shock. Copy. An unfamiliar voice. EMT's 3 minutes out. 3 minutes. Might as well be 3 hours. Megan kept pressure on the wound, her hands slick with blood. and counted seconds. 97 seconds later, Franco's voice crackled over the radio. Vincent Corso is dead. All hostiles neutralized. Lock down the estate and get body bags. Megan closed her eyes. It was over. The aftermath was a blur of EMTs and cleanup crews and men in dark suits asking questions Megan answered on autopilot. Marco was rushed to a private hospital, Franco's hospital, run by Franco's people, where questions about bullet wounds weren't asked. Dr. Conte arrived to treat the wounded. Lucia appeared with blankets and water and quiet efficiency. Franco was somewhere coordinating, giving orders, making calls. Megan caught glimpses of him moving through the chaos, blood splattered but controlled, his voice never rising, his hands steady. 3 hours later, when the bodies were gone and the blood mopped up, and the security teams posted and the estate finally, mercifully quiet, Franco found Megan sitting in the library, in the same room where Aldrich had died. She was staring at the floor where his body had been. Someone had cleaned it. You couldn't even tell. Franco sat in the chair across from her, elbows on his knees, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Marco's stable, he said. Surgery went well. He'll recover. Megan nodded. Vincent's body was found in the garage. Single shot to the head. He didn't suffer. Another nod. The rest of his network is being identified. Anyone involved will be dealt with by morning. Silence. Franco leaned back, studying her. You should say something. Like what? I don't know. Scream. Cry. Tell me I'm a monster. Franco's voice was flat. Something. You're not a monster. I killed 5 people tonight, Megan. My own brother among them. Your brother kidnapped and tortured me for months. The others tried to kill you. That's not murder. That's survival. Is that what you're calling it? It's what it is. Megan finally looked at him. You gave Aldrich a choice. He could have surrendered, could have walked away. He chose violence. You just finished what he started. Franco's jaw tightened. You don't have to justify it to me. I'm not justifying it to you. I'm justifying it to myself. Megan's hands were shaking. She clasped them together, squeezing until the tremor stopped. I wanted to kill him. When I walked into this room, I wanted to pull that trigger so badly I could taste it, and the only thing that stopped me was you. You're not a killer, Megan. Neither were you once. Franco went still. What's that supposed to mean? It means we both got dragged into this. We both had choices stolen from us, and we both did what we had to do to survive. Megan stood, her legs unsteady. But I'm done being a victim, done being rescued, done waiting for someone else to decide my fate. What are you saying? I'm saying I want in. Franco blinked. In. Your world. Your business. Whatever comes next. Megan's voice was steady now, certain. You said you're restructuring, going legitimate. You need people you can trust, people who won't betray you for a better offer. Megan, I know how to read people, Franco. I spent months locked in a basement analyzing my captors' every mood, every pattern, figuring out how to survive another day. I know when someone's lying, when they're planning something, when they're about to break. She stepped closer. And I just saved your life by catching a betrayal you missed. Tell me I'm not useful. Franco stood, towering over her, his expression unreadable. You have no idea what you're asking for. Then tell me. This life destroys people, Megan. It takes everything you are and burns it down until there's nothing left but survival instincts and scar tissue. You want that? You want to become the kind of person who doesn't flinch at violence? Who calculates casualties like a budget line? Who wakes up at 3 a.m. wondering which of their people is planning to put a bullet in their head? I'm already that person. Megan's voice was quiet, certain. Aldrich made me that person. The only difference is whether I use it or let it eat me alive. Franco stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or resignation. You want in, he said slowly. Fine, but understand this. The moment you step into my world, there's no going back, no clean exit, no walking away when it gets hard. You're in until you're dead, or I am. Those are the only outs. I know. Do you? Franco moved closer, his voice dropping. Because once people know you work for me, you become a target. Every enemy I have becomes your enemy. Every choice I make affects you. And if you're compromised, if someone gets to you, I will do whatever it takes to protect this family, even if that means cutting you loose. I understand. I don't think you do. Franco's hand shot out, gripping her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. Not violent, not rough, just absolute. I buried my own brother tonight. Didn't hesitate, didn't mourn. Just pulled the trigger and moved on. You think you can handle that kind of cold? Megan didn't flinch. I watched you do it. Didn't stop you, didn't cry, didn't feel anything except relief. So yeah, I can handle it. Franco's grip loosened. His hand fell away. Fine, he said. You start tomorrow. Lucia will set you up with an office. You'll analyze personnel files, flag anyone who might be compromised, report directly to me. No field work, no violence, just intel. I can do more than you will do intel. Franco's tone left no room for argument. Until I trust you completely. Until I know you won't break the first time things get bloody. They already got bloody. Tonight was nothing. Franco turned away, moving toward the door. You want to see real blood? Stick around. But don't say I didn't warn you. He left. Megan stood alone in the library, the smell of gun smoke still hanging in the air, and felt something settle in her chest. Not peace, not comfort, but purpose. For the first time since Aldrich had dragged her into darkness, Megan Turner knew exactly who she was. Not a victim, not a survivor, something else entirely. Geese. 3 days later, Megan sat in a small office on the estate's second floor, surrounded by personnel files. 53 names. 53 men and women who worked for Franco Ravellini in various capacities: security, logistics, finance, legal. Each file contained employment history, criminal records, known associates, financial transactions. Her job was simple: find the rot before it spread. Megan had been at it for 6 hours straight, eyes burning, coffee gone cold, when she found it. A pattern in the financial records. Small withdrawals, carefully staggered, from an account tied to Vincent Corso. The amounts were negligible, a few thousand here, a few hundred there, but they all went to the same shell company, and that shell company had ties to... Megan's stomach dropped. Lucia Moretti, the woman who'd cared for her, fed her, sat with her through panic attacks and nightmares, the woman who'd offered nothing but kindness. It had to be a mistake. A coincidence, But the numbers didn't lie. Lucia had been receiving payments from Vincent Corso for 18 months. Small amounts. Consistent. Deliberate. Megan stared at the screen, her pulse thundering in her ears. She could bury this. Delete the file. Pretend she never saw it. Or she could do what Franco hired her to do. Her hand moved to the phone. Franco answered on the second ring. What is it? I found something, Megan said. Her voice was steady, calm. You need to see this. I'm in a meeting. Can it wait? No. A pause. Then, I'll be there in 5. Megan hung up and stared at the screen. At the name, Lucia Moretti. At the evidence. At the betrayal. When Franco arrived, she handed him the tablet without a word. He read it in silence, his expression never changing. When he finished, he set the tablet down carefully. You're certain? He asked. The money trail is clear. Franco nodded once. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Bring Lucia to my office, he said quietly. Now. He ended the call and looked at Megan. Good work, he said. That was all. Just good work. As if Megan hadn't just condemned a woman who'd shown her nothing but kindness. As if this was just business. Franco left. Megan sat alone in the office, staring at her hands. They were shaking. Not from fear. From something worse. From the realization that she'd just crossed a line she could never uncross. And the worst part? She'd do it again, because this was survival now. This was the choice she'd made. And there was no going back. Megan didn't go to Franco's office. Didn't watch the confrontation. Didn't need to. She heard the gunshot 2 hours later. Single shot. Clean. Final. Lucia didn't scream. Afterward, Franco found Megan in the library again. Same spot. Same silence. She admitted it, he said without preamble. Vincent recruited her 3 years ago. She fed him information on my schedule, my security protocols, my vulnerabilities. She's the reason Aldrich knew when to move. The reason tonight happened. Megan said nothing. She asked about you before I shot her, Franco continued. His voice was flat, empty. Wanted to know if you were the one who found her out. What did you tell her? The truth. Megan closed her eyes. You did the right thing. Franco said. Did I? Yes. Franco sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Lucia made her choice 3 years ago. Every day since then, she chose to betray this family, to put everyone in it, including you, at risk. What happened to her is the consequence of those choices, not yours. Doesn't feel that way. It never does. Franco's voice was quiet. But that's the cost. You carry it, and you keep moving. Because if you stop, if you let the weight pull you under, you're done. Megan opened her eyes. Franco was staring straight ahead, his profile carved from stone. How do you do it? She asked. Carry all of it? I don't. Franco's jaw tightened. I bury it, and I keep burying it until the day it finally buries me. That's a hell of a way to live. It's the only way I know. They sat in silence. Outside, the estate's lights blazed against the darkness. Security patrolling, staff cleaning, life continuing in the wake of death. I'm sorry, Franco said finally. Megan looked at him. For what? For pulling you into this. His voice was raw, almost vulnerable. You should have walked away, should have taken the go bag and disappeared, built a life somewhere far from all this. Maybe. Megan's hand found his, squeezed once. But I didn't, and that's on me. Franco's fingers tightened around hers, just for a moment. Then he stood, letting go, the wall slamming back into place. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we start identifying the rest of Vincent's network. He left. Megan sat alone, staring at her hand, at the ghost of his touch, at the blood, invisible but indelible, staining her palms. She'd chosen this. Chosen him. Chosen survival over morality, pragmatism over principle. And somewhere in the darkness of that choice, Megan Turner, the nurse, the victim, the woman who'd once believed in saving lives, disappeared completely. What remained was something colder, harder, built for this world Franco had warned her about, built to survive it, no matter the cost. The network unraveled fast. 3 days after Lucia's execution, Megan had identified 7 more compromised operatives. Franco moved on each one with surgical precision. No trials, no second chances, just quiet disappearances that sent a clear message through the ranks. Betrayal had one price, and it was paid in full. Megan watched it happen from her office. Watched men she'd treated in the clinic vanish overnight. Watched their files get stamped with red ink and archived in boxes bound for incineration. Watched Franco become something harder with each decision, each death, each necessary brutality. And she felt nothing. That was the worst part. Not the violence, not the body count, the numbness. On the 4th day, Franco summoned her to his office at 2 a.m. Megan found him standing at the windows, scotch in hand, the city lights sprawling below like scattered diamonds. He didn't turn when she entered. We have a problem, he said. Megan closed the door behind her. What kind? The kind that ends with all of us dead if we don't move first. Franco drained the scotch, set the glass down with controlled force. Vincent's network was bigger than I thought. He had connections to the Calabrese family, old rivalries I thought were buried. How old? 20 years. Franco finally turned. His face was drawn, exhaustion carved into every line. My father did business with Antonio Calabrese before he died. Territory disputes, money laundering, the usual. It ended badly. Antonio lost 2 brothers and a substantial investment. He blamed my father, swore revenge. But your father's dead, which means the debt transfers to me. Franco moved to his desk, pulled out a folder, and slid it across to Megan. Antonio's been building his strength for 2 decades, waiting, and Vincent gave him the opening he needed. Megan opened the folder. Photos, surveillance reports, financial records. Antonio Calabrese was in his 60s now, gray-haired and distinguished, but his eyes held the kind of cold that came from decades of calculated violence. Vincent promised him our territory, Franco continued, our operations, everything, in exchange for support in overthrowing me. Antonio's been mobilizing for weeks. We just didn't know who he was mobilizing for. How many men? 60, maybe 70, professional muscle, some ex-military. Franco's jaw tightened. We have 32 after the purge, and half of those are wounded. The math was brutal. Megan set the folder down. So we're outgunned. Significantly. What's the play? Franco studied her for a long moment. There isn't one. Not a good one. Antonio wants blood, wants to finish what started with my father. I can negotiate, buy time, maybe broker a peace, but it'll cost everything. Territory, operations, respect. We'd be neutered, irrelevant. Or we hit him first, hard, before he's ready. Franco's voice was flat. Take out his leadership, scatter his forces, make the cost of revenge too high to stomach. That's a suicide mission. Yes. Megan's pulse quickened. You're serious. I'm out of options. Franco circled the desk, leaning against it, arms crossed. Antonio's moving in 3 days. We intercepted communications. He's planning a coordinated strike. The estate, our warehouses, our legitimate holdings, everything at once. We can't defend all of it. We don't have the manpower. So you attack. So I eliminate the threat at its source. Franco's expression was grim. Antonio's hosting a meeting tomorrow night. All his lieutenants, his enforcers, his entire command structure in one room. If we hit them there, you'd start a war. The war's already started, Megan. I'm just deciding whether to fight it on my terms or his. Megan crossed her arms, mind racing. How many men can you spare for the hit? 8, maybe 10. Against 60? Against 20. At the meeting. Franco's voice was cold. The rest will be scattered across the city. By the time they regroup, their leadership will be dead and we'll be fortified here. And if it goes wrong, then we all die. Franco met her eyes. But at least we die fighting. The silence stretched. Megan should have been horrified, should have argued, pushed back, found another way. Instead, she asked, "What do you need from me?" Franco's expression shifted, something like respect flickering through the exhaustion. You stay here. Coordinate from the estate. If things go sideways, you lock down and wait for my signal. No. Megan, I said no. Megan moved closer, her voice steady. You're walking into a death trap with 10 men against an army. You need every advantage you can get. I can help. You're not trained for this. I'm trained to read people, to spot tells, to know when someone's lying or planning something. Megan's hands were steady now, certain. You need intelligence in real time. Someone who can watch the room, flag threats before they move. That's me. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous. That's the life you warned me about. Megan stepped closer, close enough to see the war in Franco's eyes. You gave me a choice. I chose this. So let me do my job. Franco stared at her. For a moment she thought he'd refuse, thought the walls would slam down and he'd pull rank, shut her out, keep her safe whether she wanted it or not. Instead, he exhaled slowly. You stay in the van, eyes only. You see a threat, you call it. But you do not engage. Understood? Understood. If shooting starts, you run. You don't wait for me. You don't play hero. You get out and you survive. Franco. That's the deal, Megan. Take it or you stay here. Megan held his gaze. Deal. Franco nodded once. Then he pulled out his phone and started making calls. Tomorrow night, they were going to war. The briefing happened at dawn. 10 men gathered in Franco's office. Marco, still pale, but mobile. Dante, a stocky enforcer with dead eyes. 6 others whose names Megan had memorized from their files. All professionals. All killers. Franco laid out the plan with clinical precision. Antonio's meeting was being held at an industrial warehouse on the waterfront. Neutral territory. Limited exits. Perfect kill box if they could control the approach. Franco's team would split into 3 units, Marco leading entry, Dante on overwatch, Franco commanding from the center. We go in fast, Bicham, Franco said, pointing to the warehouse schematic spread across his desk. 30 seconds from breach to contact. No warnings, no negotiations. We kill everyone in that room and we get out. What about civilians? One of the men asked. There won't be any. Antonio's too paranoid. Franco's voice was flat. Anyone in that building is a combatant. Treat them as such. Megan watched from the corner, her tablet open, Antonio's personnel files scrolling across the screen. 20 confirmed attendees, all violent offenders, all loyal to Antonio, all about to die. Megan will coordinate from the surveillance van, Franco continued. She'll have eyes on the exterior cameras, comms with all units. Anything moves, she calls it. The men glanced at her. No objection, no argument, just cold assessment. She met their gazes without flinching. Timeline, Franco said. We leave at 1900, hit the target at 2000 sharp. Extraction window is 3 minutes. Anyone not at the rally point gets left behind. And if Antonio's not there, Marco asked, then we abort and regroup. Franco's expression was stone. But he'll be there. He's too arrogant to miss this. The briefing ended. The men dispersed to prep weapons and gear. Franco caught Megan's arm as she turned to leave. Last chance to back out. Not backing out. This isn't like the estate. There's no panic room, no backup plan. If it goes wrong, I know. Megan's voice was steady. I'll be fine. Franco's grip tightened, just for a moment. Then he let go. 1900, he said. Don't be late. Talk. The surveillance van smelled like stale coffee and gun oil. Megan sat in the back, surrounded by screens showing camera feeds from the warehouse district. Thermal imaging, motion sensors, audio pickups. The tech was military-grade, expensive, and slightly terrifying in its precision. Franco sat beside her, checking his weapon for the third time. A matte black Sig Sauer, suppressor already attached. He moved with the kind of mechanical efficiency that came from decades of practice. You nervous? Megan asked. Franco glanced at her. Are you? Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Franco holstered the weapon, his movements precise. The moment you stop being afraid is the moment you make mistakes. Is that what happened to Vincent? He stopped being afraid? Vincent got greedy. Greed's worse than fear. Franco's voice was quiet. Fear makes you cautious. Greed makes you stupid. The driver, a silent man named Luca, spoke up from the front. 5 minutes to position. Franco keyed his radio. All units, sound off. One by one, his men confirmed their positions. Marco at the north entrance. Dante on the rooftop across the street. The others scattered in tactical formation around the warehouse. Megan pulled up the thermal imaging. 23 heat signatures inside the main room. More than expected. Franco, she said quietly. We've got 23 bodies in there. Intel said 20. Franco leaned over, studying the screen. Could be guards, or reinforcements, or a trap. Franco's jaw tightened. Marco, you seen this? Copy. Marco's voice crackled. Want me to hold? For a long moment, Franco didn't answer. Megan could see the calculation in his eyes. Risk versus reward, survival versus victory. No, Franco said finally. We move, but weapons hot from breach. No hesitation. Copy. The van rolled to a stop 3 blocks from the target. Megan's screens showed Franco's men moving into position like ghosts. Silent, coordinated, lethal. 2 minutes, Luca said. Franco stood, moving toward the van's rear door. He paused, looking back at Megan. If I don't make it out, you'll make it out. If I don't, Franco continued, his voice firm, there's a package in my desk. Top drawer, instructions for Luca. He'll get you somewhere safe. Franco, promise me you'll take it. Megan's throat closed. I promise. Franco nodded. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night. Megan turned back to the screens, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled up the comms panel. All units, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. This is oversight. I have your positions. Thermal shows 23 hostiles, main room, no movement toward exits. You are clear to move. Copy oversight, Marco's voice. Breaching in 60 seconds. Megan watched the screens, watched Franco's heat signature move toward the warehouse's west entrance, watched Marco's team stack up on the north door, watched Dante settle into position on the rooftop, rifle trained on the main entrance. 30 seconds, Marco said. Megan's heart hammered. Her palms were slick with sweat. She wiped them on her jeans, eyes locked on the screens. 15. Franco reached his door, his hand on the handle. 10. Marco's team ready, weapons raised. 5. Megan held her breath. Breach! The doors exploded inward simultaneously. Gunfire erupted immediately, not Franco's team, but from inside the warehouse. Muzzle flashes lit up the thermal imaging like fireworks. Ambush, Marco's voice sharp. Fall back! Negative, Franco's voice cut through. Push through, don't let them box us in. Megan's screens went chaotic. Bodies moving, falling, heat signatures flaring and dying. She couldn't tell who was who, couldn't separate Franco's men from Antonio's. Oversight, I need a count, Franco shouted over the gunfire. How many are we facing? Megan forced herself to focus, to count the moving signatures. 32 hostiles. Repeat, 3-2. They were waiting for you. Fuck. Franco's breathing was ragged. Marco, status? 2 men down, taking heavy fire from the east catwalk. Dante, can you clear it? Negative. Too much smoke. I'm blind. More gunfire. Screaming. The wet sound of bodies hitting concrete. Franco, you need to pull out. Megan's voice cracked. You're outnumbered 3-1. We can't pull out. They've blocked the exits. Franco's voice was cold, controlled despite the chaos. We fight through or we die here. Megan's hands flew across the console, pulling up every camera angle. He was right. Antonio's men had moved to seal the exits the moment Franco's team breached. It was a perfect trap. There's a service tunnel, Megan said, her eyes locking onto a schematic overlay. Southeast corner, leads to the waterfront. Can you reach it? How far? 30 meters from your position. That's across the main floor. We'd be exposed the entire way. It's the only way out. Silence. Just gunfire and shouting. Then Franco. Marco, rally on me. We're punching through to the southeast corner. Copy. Dante, lay down suppressing fire. Everything you've got. On it. Megan watched the thermal signatures converge. Franco's remaining men, 7 now, 3 dead, formed up and started moving. Dante's rifle cracked from the rooftop, methodical and deadly. Antonio's men scattered, seeking cover, but there were too many. For every one Dante dropped, 2 more appeared. Franco, you've got hostiles flanking left. I see them. Gunfire. 3 signatures dropped. More coming from the north, soft. Dante! I'm on them. The rifle cracked twice. 2 more down, but Franco's team was taking hits. 1 signature stumbled, fell, didn't get up. Another slowed, dragging a wounded leg. 20 meters to the tunnel, Megan said, her voice tight. You're almost there. Almost not good enough. Franco's breathing was harsh now. Marco, cover the rear. Everyone else, move. The signatures surged forward. Gunfire intensified. Megan could hear Franco shouting orders, could hear the desperation bleeding through the control. 10 meters. A heat signature appeared behind Franco's group. Large. Moving fast. Franco, behind you. Too late. The explosion ripped through the warehouse's west wall. The shockwave knocked out half of Megan's cameras. Static flooded the screens. Franco! Megan's hand slammed against the console. Franco, respond! Static. Marco? Dante? Anyone? More static. Then, faintly, Franco's voice. Still here? Tunnels blocked. Explosion sealed it. Are you injured? Shrapnel. Left shoulder. I'm mobile, tia. Franco coughed, the sound wet. We're pinned down. Southeast corner. No exit. Megan's mind raced. The tunnel was gone. The main exit's blocked. Franco and his remaining men trapped in a corner while Antonio's forces closed in. They were going to die. Unless... Megan pulled up the building's utility systems. Gas lines, electrical, water mains. There. Franco, listen carefully. There's a gas main running beneath the southeast corner. If you can rupture it and create an ignition source, I'll blow the entire corner off the building. And create an exit. Franco laughed. It sounded broken. That's insane, like... So is dying in there. Silence. Then, how do I rupture the main? Megan walked him through it. Exposed pipe, weak junction, concentrated fire from multiple weapons. We've got about 90 seconds before they overrun us, Franco said. Make sure Luca knows where to position for extraction. Already on it. Megan switched channels. Luca, southeast corner, waterfront side. Prepare for breach. Copy. She switched back. Franco, you've got incoming from your 3 o'clock. I see them. Marco, hold them off. Gunfire. Screaming. 60 seconds, Franco said. Everyone dump magazines into that junction. Now. The sound was deafening even over the radio. Overlapping automatic fire concentrated on a single point. Megan watched the thermal bloom, watched the temperature spike. Gas is venting, Franco shouted. Fall back! Fall back! The signatures scattered. Dante, I need that ignition. Trace around right into the vent. Copy. 1 second, 2. The rifle cracked. The explosion was massive. It tore through the southeast corner like the hand of an angry god, blowing out the wall in a shower of concrete and flame. Megan's screens went white. Audio cut out completely. She waited, pulse hammering, hands shaking. Franco? Franco! Static. Then, we're out. Moving to extraction. 4 men left. Relief hit so hard Megan almost collapsed. Luca's in position. 30 seconds. She watched the thermal signatures emerge from the smoke and flame, 4 shapes, moving fast despite obvious injuries. They piled into Luca's vehicle as Antonio's remaining forces poured out of the warehouse in pursuit. Go! Franco's voice. Go! 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 The vehicle peeled out. Megan tracked it on GPS, watching Antonio's men scramble for their own cars, giving chase. You've got 3 vehicles in pursuit, Megan said. Luca, take Harbor Boulevard. There's construction, narrow lanes. They can't follow in force. Copy. The chase lasted 7 minutes. Dante, riding in the back, leaned out and put rounds through 2 of the pursuing vehicle's engines. The third broke off when Franco's team crossed into territory controlled by a neutral family. No one wanted to start a multi-faction war. By the time Luca pulled into the estate's underground garage, Megan was already there, medical supplies ready. The van's door opened. Franco climbed out, blood soaking his left shoulder inside, his face pale but controlled. Marco followed, limping badly. The other 2, Dante and a younger man named Carlo, were in better shape but still bleeding. 7 dead, Franco said flatly, plus the wounded. For what? Antonio's still alive, his operations intact. We accomplished nothing. You survived, Megan said, moving to examine his shoulder. That's something. Survival's not victory. It is when the alternative's death. Megan cut away his shirt, revealing a deep gash where shrapnel had torn through muscle. This needs stitches. Sit down. Franco obeyed, sinking into a chair. His eyes were distant, haunted. He knew we were coming, Franco said quietly. Antonio knew. He tripled his guard, blocked the exits, planted explosives. That wasn't coincidence. Megan's hand stilled. You think there's another leak? I know there's another leak. Franco's voice was cold. Someone told Antonio we'd identified his meeting. Someone gave him time to prepare. Who? That's what I need to figure out. Franco met her eyes. Before they get us all killed. Megan resumed stitching, her mind already running through personnel files, trying to identify who could have known about the operation, who had access to the intelligence, who had motive to betray. It's not you, Franco said suddenly. Megan looked up. What? You're wondering if I suspect you. I don't. Franco's expression was grim. You're the only person I trust right now. Everyone else is a question mark. The weight of that trust settled on Megan's shoulders like a physical thing. Then we find them together, she said. Franco nodded, winced as she tied off the last stitch. Together, he repeated quietly. Boom. The answer came 3 hours later. Megan was back in her office, cross-referencing communication logs and movement records. When she found it, a phone call, made from the estate's landline, 30 minutes before Franco's team deployed, to a number registered to a shell corporation, the same shell corporation that had ties to Antonio Calabrese. Megan's blood went cold. She traced the call. Internal line, extension 47. Dr. Conte's office, the man who'd saved her life, who'd treated Franco's wounded, who'd been with the family for 15 years. Megan stared at the screen, her mind refusing to accept what she was seeing. It had to be wrong. Had to be a mistake. Dr. Conte was loyal, trustworthy. Another record surfaced. A wire transfer. From Dr. Conte's personal account to the same shell corporation. $50,000. Dated 2 weeks ago. Then another. And another. 6 transfers. $300,000 total. Blood money. Megan grabbed her radio with shaking hands. Franco, my office, now. He arrived 60 seconds later, Marco and Dante flanking him, weapons drawn. Megan turned the screen toward them. Franco's expression went dead flat. Where is he? Medical wing, treating the wounded. Franco turned without a word and walked out. Megan followed. They found Dr. Conte in the clinic, stitching up Carlo's arm. He looked up when Franco entered, smiled warmly. Ah, Franco, I was just finishing. Franco shot him in the kneecap. Dr. Conte screamed, collapsing. Carlo scrambled backward. Marco shut the door. $300,000, Franco said calmly, pulling up a chair and sitting across from the writhing doctor. From you to Antonio Calabrese, over the past 6 months. Want to explain that? Dr. Conte's face went gray. I don't know what... Franco shot his other kneecap. The screaming intensified. Megan stood frozen in the doorway, watching Franco work with the same clinical precision he applied to everything else. "Let's try again," Franco said. "And this time, don't lie. I've had a very bad day and I'm not in the mood." Dr. Conte sobbed, clutching his ruined legs. He threatened my family, my daughter." "When?" "6 months ago. Said if I didn't feed him information, he'd kill her, kill my wife. I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice." Franco's voice was ice. "You chose to betray me, to get 7 of my men killed, to nearly get me killed. That's your choice." "Please, Franco, I was protecting my family." "So was I." Franco stood. "The difference is, I didn't sell out everyone around me to do it." He raised the gun. "Wait." Dr. Conte's hand shot up. "Wait, there's more. Antonio has someone else in your organization. I don't know who. But he mentioned it, said he had insurance." Franco paused. "Who?" "I don't know, I swear, he never said." Dr. Conte's face was ashen, blood pooling beneath him. "But it's someone close to you, someone you trust." Franco's jaw tightened. He looked at Marco. "Take him to the basement. Get names, locations, everything." "And after?" Marco asked. "After, put a bullet in his head." Marco and Dante dragged Dr. Conte out, his screams echoing down the hallway. Franco stood alone in the clinic, staring at the blood on the floor. Megan approached carefully. "You okay?" "No." Franco's voice was hollow. 15 years, Megan. He was with me for 15 years, treated my father before he died, delivered my sister's children, and he sold me out for $300,000. He said Antonio threatened his family. Everyone has an excuse. Franco turned, and the look in his eyes was empty, burned out. Vincent was ambitious. Lucia was scared. Conte was protecting his daughter. At what point does the excuse stop mattering? Megan didn't have an answer. Franco holstered his weapon. "There's one more. Conte said so. Someone close. Could be anyone." "No, not anyone." Franco moved to the window, staring out at the grounds. "Someone who knew about tonight's operation. Someone who had access to the details. That's a very short list." Megan's stomach dropped. "Franco, I know what you're thinking, and yes, you're on that list." Franco's voice was flat. "So is Marco. So is Dante. So is Luca. Hell, even I'm on the list at this point. You think one of your core team? I think Antonio's good at turning people. And I think I've been blind." Franco's hands clenched. "Tomorrow, we lock down completely. No one in or out. No communications except through me directly. And we start digging. And when we find them?" Franco met her eyes. "Same thing I did to Conte. Same thing I did to Lucia. Same thing I've done to everyone who betrayed this family. Even if it's Marco? Especially if it's Marco." Franco's voice was absolute. No exceptions. No mercy. Megan nodded slowly. They stood in silence, the weight of what was coming settling over them like a shroud. Somewhere in this house, someone was planning their deaths. And tomorrow, they'd find out who. Pomag. The lockdown started at dawn. Franco gathered everyone, the entire remaining household, in the main hall. 23 people total. Staff, security, the wounded. Everyone. He stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at them. "One of you," he said quietly, "is working for Antonio Calabrese." The silence was absolute. Dr. Conti confessed before he died. Confirmed that Antonio has someone embedded in this household. Someone close. Franco's gaze swept the room. "So here's what's going to happen. You're all confined to the estate until we identify and remove the traitor. No phone calls, no messages, no contact with the outside world." "For how long?" someone asked. "As long as it takes." Franco's voice was steel. "Cooperate, and you walk away clean. Resist, and I'll assume you're the one we're looking for." He descended the stairs, moving through the crowd, watching, assessing. Megan stood off to the side, her tablet open, personnel files ready. She'd spent the night building a matrix. Who had access to what information? Who was where when key decisions were made? Who had the opportunity to communicate with Antonio? The list kept coming back to the same 5 names. Marco, Dante, Luca, Carlo, and one more. A woman named Isabella, Franco's personal assistant. The one who managed his schedule, his communications, his daily operations. Megan pulled up Isabella's file. 32. With Franco for 8 years. Clean record. No red flags. Except Megan dug deeper, found a connection she'd missed before. Isabella's maiden name was Russo, same as Antonio Calabrese's deceased wife, cousins. Megan's pulse spiked. She grabbed her radio, but before she could key it, someone screamed. She spun. Isabella stood in the middle of the hall, a pistol in her hand, pointed directly at Franco's back. "Nobody move," Isabella said calmly. Franco turned slowly. His expression didn't change. "Isabella?" "I'm sorry, Franco, I really am." Isabella's hand was steady. "But family's family." "Antonio's your family?" "Was. Through marriage. And he's offered me something you never did." "What's that?" "A way out." Isabella's smile was sad. "You're building a sinking ship, Franco. Going legitimate. Cutting ties with the real power. Antonio sees that. He's going to take everything you built and run it the way it should have been run all along." "By murdering me?" "By removing an obstacle." Isabella cocked the hammer. "Nothing personal." She fired. But Franco was already moving, diving left, rolling behind a pillar. The shot went wide, shattering a vase. Chaos erupted. People scattered. Dante raised his weapon, but Isabella put 2 rounds in his chest before he could fire. He went down hard. Marco moved from the side, trying to flank, but Isabella spun and fired again. Marco ducked, returned fire. The bullet caught Isabella in the shoulder. She stumbled, but didn't drop. Megan didn't think, just moved. She tackled Isabella from behind, driving her to the ground. The gun skittered across the marble. Megan grabbed for it, but Isabella was faster. She twisted, drove an elbow into Megan's ribs, broke free. They both lunged for the weapon. Isabella reached it first. She swung it toward Megan, finger on the trigger. Franco's shot took her in the head. Isabella dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The room went silent. Franco lowered his weapon, breathing hard, blood from his reopened shoulder wound soaking through his shirt. He walked to Isabella's body, stared down at it. 8 years, he said quietly. I trusted her for 8 years. Megan stood, clutching her bruised ribs. She was Antonio's cousin. I know. Franco's voice was hollow. I should have seen it, should have checked. You can't check everything. I can. I should. Franco turned away. Get Dante to the clinic, and someone clean this up. He walked toward his office, his footsteps echoing in the silent hall. Megan watched him go, her heart breaking for a man who'd just killed someone he'd trusted like family. Again. That night, Franco sat alone in his office, staring at the blank wall. Megan found him there hours later. He hadn't moved, hadn't turned on the lights. You should eat something, she said quietly. Not hungry. Franco, I'm done, Megan. His voice was flat, empty. I've purged my own organization 3 times in 2 weeks. Killed people I trusted, people I cared about. And Antonio's still out there, still coming, and I'm down to 20 people who might or might not betray me tomorrow. Megan crossed the room, sat in the chair across from him. So what do you want to do? Franco finally looked at her. I want to end this. Permanently. How? By doing what I should have done weeks ago. Franco leaned forward. I'm going to Antonio, alone, and I'm going to finish it. That's suicide. Maybe. Franco's smile was bitter. But at least it'll be over. And what about me? What about the people here who've stayed loyal? You take the go bag. Disappear. Start over. Franco's voice was quiet. Live the life you should have had before Aldrich destroyed it. Megan stared at him, at the defeat in his eyes, at the weight crushing him. Then she stood, moved around the desk, and slapped him across the face. Franco's head snapped to the side. He looked up at her, shock cutting through the numbness. You don't get to quit, Megan said, her voice shaking with fury. You don't get to give up and walk into death because it's easier than fighting. You saved my life, Franco, gave me a purpose when I had nothing, and now you're going to throw it away because you're tired? Megan, shut up. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. You want to end this? Fine. We end it, together. But we do it smart. We do it right. And we make sure that when it's over, we're the ones still standing. Franco stared at her. Something shifted in his expression, the emptiness receding, replaced by something harder, sharper. Together, he said quietly. Together, Megan confirmed. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Franco's hand came up, covering hers where it still gripped his face. How? He asked. Megan smiled, cold, certain. We give Antonio exactly what he wants. The plan was simple, dangerous, probably fatal, which made it perfect. Franco sat across from Megan in the dim light of his office, the city sprawling below them like a galaxy of broken promises. Between them on the desk lay a burner phone, a single photograph, and a handwritten note. You're certain about this? Franco asked for the third time. Megan didn't flinch. You have a better idea? Several. All of them involve you being somewhere safe while I handle Antonio. And all of them end with you dead. Megan leaned forward, her voice steady. Antonio wants revenge. He wants to humiliate you before he kills you. That's his weakness. We use it. Franco studied the photograph. Antonio Calabrese at a charity gala, surrounded by admirers, playing the role of respectable businessman. The man who'd orchestrated the deaths of Franco's people, who'd turned trusted allies into traitors, who'd been waiting 2 decades for this moment. He'll know it's a trap, Franco said. Of course he will. Megan's smile was cold, but his ego won't let him refuse. You're offering him exactly what he wants. You, vulnerable, on neutral ground, without your army. He'll come because saying no would make him look weak. Franco picked up the note. The message was direct. Let's end this. You and me. No soldiers. No games. The old pier, midnight tomorrow. We settle our father's debts once and for all. And when he brings 30 men anyway, Franco asked, then we make sure we're not the only ones with a surprise waiting. Megan pulled up a schematic on her tablet. The pier's been condemned for 5 years. Structural damage, weight limits. If we position it right, you want to collapse it. I want to give Antonio a choice. Megan's eyes were hard. Honor the agreement and fight you one-on-one, or bring his army and watch them all drown when the pier gives out beneath them. Franco was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh, broken sound that held no humor. You're terrifying, he said. You know that. I learned from the best. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, maybe. Or acceptance. They'd both been shaped by violence, carved down to the bone, until only the hardest parts remained. If this goes wrong, Franco started. It won't. If it does, Franco continued, his voice firm, you run. You don't look back. You don't try to save me. You take the money and you disappear. Promise me. Megan held his gaze. I promise. It was a lie. They both knew it. But some lies were kindnesses. Franco picked up the burner phone and dialed. Antonio answered on the second ring. Franco Ravellini, I was wondering when you'd call. We need to talk, Franco said. His voice was flat, defeated, exactly the tone a desperate man would use. About ending this. I'm listening. Face to face, no intermediaries, no soldiers, just you and me. Antonio laughed. And why would I agree to that? Because you want to look me in the eyes when you pull the trigger. Because you want me to know that you won, that you finished what my father started. Franco paused. And because if this war continues, we both lose everything. Your operation, mine. The families watching from the sidelines will pick our bones clean. Silence on the other end. Franco could almost hear Antonio's mind working, weighing the offer against his thirst for revenge. Where? Antonio asked finally. The old pier industrial district, tomorrow at midnight. Alone? Completely. Another pause. If you're lying, if this is a trap, I'll burn your estate to the ground with everyone inside. No trap, Franco said. Just 2 old men settling an older debt. Antonio hung up. Franco set the phone down carefully. He'll bring an army. I know, Megan said. So will we. They spent the next 24 hours preparing. Marco, still limping but functional, coordinated the positioning. The pier was perfect for what they needed, a half-mile stretch of rotted wood and rusted metal jutting into the harbor, condemned after a barge collision had compromised the support pylons. Weight limits were posted every 100 feet. Danger, maximum capacity, 8 persons, structural failure imminent. We weaken the center section, Marco explained, pointing to the schematic. Cut through 60% of the support beams. Enough that it'll hold under normal weight, but add 30 armed men and it'll fold like cardboard. What about Franco? Megan asked. Franco stays at the shore end. Antonio comes to him. When Antonio's men pile onto the pier, it collapses. They go into the water, weighted down with weapons and body armor. Megan's voice was clinical. Casualties? Significant. Maybe total if they can't swim. Good. Dante handled the tactical elements. Sniper positions in the surrounding warehouses, escape routes, contingency plans if Antonio decided to ignore the rules entirely. Luca prepped vehicles. Carlo rigged remote charges on the weakened pylons as insurance. Megan coordinated it all, her tablet filled with timelines and backup scenarios and cold calculations about acceptable losses. She barely slept, didn't eat, just worked, driven by something she couldn't name, rage maybe, or the need to prove that the woman who'd been chained in a basement wasn't gone, just transformed into something harder. Franco found her at dawn, still working. You should rest, he said. So should you. Franco sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Are you afraid? Megan considered the question. I was afraid in the basement, afraid every time Aldrich came down those stairs, afraid when you pulled me out and I didn't know if you were saving me or just changing the cage. She looked at him. But now, no, I'm not afraid anymore. What are you? Angry. The word came out quiet, certain. At Aldrich. At Antonio. At every person who thought they could use me or break me or take something from me without consequences. Today we deliver those consequences. Franco's hand found hers. After tonight, if we survive, what then? Then we rebuild. Smaller. Smarter. No more traitors. No more wars. Megan squeezed his hand. Just us, and the people who've earned the right to stand with us. That's not much of a future. It's more than I had 3 months ago. They sat in silence, watching the sunrise paint the city gold. Megan, Franco said quietly, I need to tell you something, in case tonight goes wrong. Franco, just listen. He turned to face her fully. When I pulled you out of that basement, I told myself it was about justice, about stopping Aldrich, about protecting the family name, but that was a lie. Or at least not the whole truth. Megan's breath caught. The truth is, Franco continued, his voice rough, I saw you on those surveillance feeds and something broke in me. Not pity, not obligation, something else. Like recognizing a piece of myself I thought was dead. And every day since then, watching you put yourself back together, watching you refuse to stay broken. He stopped, searching for words. You terrify me, Megan Turner, because you make me want things I thought I'd given up on. Things like tomorrow, like peace, like something that isn't just survival. Megan's throat closed. She'd spent months building walls, turning herself into something cold and functional, and Franco's words were demolishing them brick by brick. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to be anything except what Aldrich made me. You're not what Aldrich made you. You're what you chose to become. Franco's hand came up, gentle on her cheek. That's the difference. He tried to own you, but you own yourself. Every choice, every consequence. That's not damage. That's strength. Franco. If tonight goes wrong, he said, if I don't make it out, I need you to know that you saved me too, from becoming my father, from becoming exactly what I've spent my whole life trying to avoid. You gave me a reason to want more than just endless wars and empty victories. Megan's eyes burned. She pressed her forehead against his. Then don't die tonight, because I'm not done with you yet. Franco's laugh was soft, broken. Deal. They stayed like that until the sun finished rising and duty called them back. Samik. Midnight came cold and clear. The pier stretched into darkness, lit only by scattered streetlights that barely penetrated the industrial gloom. Franco stood at the shore end, hands in his coat pockets, completely alone. Behind him, 2 blocks away, Marco and his remaining team watched through scopes and thermal imaging. Megan was in the surveillance van with Luca, screens showing every angle of the pier, the surrounding warehouses, the water below. Her finger hovered over the detonator that would blow the support charges if things went wrong. At 11:58, headlights appeared. 3 SUVs. Black. Expensive. They parked 50 yards from the pier entrance. Doors opened. Men emerged, too many to count in the darkness, but definitely more than one. Antonio Calabrese stepped forward, illuminated by his vehicle's headlights. He was exactly as his photos suggested, distinguished, gray-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Behind him, 30 men with weapons. He'd brought an army. Franco didn't move. just waited. Antonio approached alone, stopping at the pier's entrance. Franco Ravellini, you look like shit. You look old. Antonio's smile was cold. 20 years I've waited for this moment. 20 years of watching you play businessman while your father's blood went unavenged. Your brothers died in a war they started. My father just finished it. Your father stole from me, humiliated me, cost me everything. Antonio's voice was sharp with old rage. And now I'm going to do the same to you. Then let's get it over with, Franco gestured to the peer. You wanted this meeting. Here I am. Antonio studied him. You know I brought men. I know. And you came alone anyway. Either you're incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Maybe both. Franco's voice was flat. Or maybe I'm just tired of running. You want to kill me? Fine, do it. But do it yourself, face to face, not hiding behind 30 soldiers. Antonio's expression shifted, something like respect flickering through the hatred. You're serious? Completely. For a long moment, Antonio considered. Then he turned to his men. Stay here. This is between me and Franco. One of his lieutenants stepped forward. Boss, that's not... I said stay. Antonio's voice cracked like a whip. This is my revenge. I'm not delegating it. He turned back to Franco. Started walking onto the pier. Franco fell into step beside him. They moved slowly, their footsteps echoing on the rotted wood. The pier groaned beneath them, a sound like a dying whale. Behind them, Antonio's men waited, tense, weapons ready. Franco and Antonio reached the midpoint, the weakened section. Franco stopped. This is far enough, he said. Antonio turned to face him fully. Before I kill you, I want to know something. Was it worth it? Building your little empire. Going legitimate. Trying to be something you're not. Yes, Franco said simply. Because I'm not my father, and you're not your brothers. We could have ended this cycle. Could have chosen something different. There is no different. There's only power, and the people who take it. Antonio pulled a gun from his coat. Your father understood that. You never did. Maybe. Franco's voice was calm. Or maybe you're just too old to see another way. Antonio raised the gun, and Franco's radio crackled to life, loud enough for Antonio to hear. Boss, we've got movement. Multiple hostiles approaching from the north. What? Antonio spun, looking back toward his men. From the warehouses, muzzle flashes erupted. Not from Franco's people, from someone else entirely. Antonio's men scattered, returning fire, chaos erupting in seconds. Franco grabbed Antonio's wrist, twisting the gun away. They grappled, two old men fighting with desperate strength, the pier groaning beneath them. What did you do? Antonio snarled. Nothing. Franco drove his knee into Antonio's gut. But you have enemies beyond me, and they just saw an opportunity. The pier shuddered. The sound of splintering wood cut through the gunfire. Antonio's men, seeking cover from the unexpected attack, surged onto the pier. No! Antonio screamed. Get back! Get off the... The center section collapsed. It happened fast. One moment solid wood, the next a gaping maw of blackness and freezing water. 20 of Antonio's men went down screaming, dragged under by their weapons and armor. The remainder scattered, some making it to shore, others falling as the unknown attackers picked them off. Franco and Antonio clung to the remaining section of pier, the shore end still intact. They pulled themselves up, both bleeding, both gasping. Who? Antonio choked out. Who's attacking? Probably the Marchetti family. Franco's voice was strained. You've been raiding their territory for months. They've been waiting for a chance to hit you when you were exposed. You set me up. I gave you a choice. One-on-one or bring an army. You chose wrong. Franco pulled himself fully onto solid ground, breathing hard. And now your men are dead, and your enemies are circling. The gunfire was dying down. The Marchetti forces, whoever they were, melted back into the shadows, their message delivered. Antonio lay on the splintered wood, his suit soaked, his face gray. He'd lost his weapon in the struggle, lost his men, lost everything in the span of 3 minutes. Do it, he rasped. Finish it. Franco pulled his gun, stood over Antonio, and paused. No, he said quietly. Antonio blinked. What? I'm not killing you. Franco lowered the weapon. You're going to live. Going to watch your empire crumble. Watch everything you built fall apart because you couldn't let go of a 20-year-old grudge. That's a better punishment than a bullet. Franco, We're done here. Franco turned to walk away. Antonio lunged. He'd palmed a knife, small, hidden in his sleeve, drove it toward Franco's back. The gunshot came from 50 yards away. Dante's rifle. The bullet took Antonio through the chest. He stumbled, the knife clattering away, and collapsed face first onto the pier. Franco turned, looked down at the body, and felt nothing. Just cold. Just empty. Just done. He pulled out his radio. Secure the area. Collect our people. We're leaving. Marco's voice. Copy. What about the bodies? Let the harbor have them. Franco walked off the pier without looking back. The safe house was small, anonymous, a 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood 2 states away. No security detail, no staff, just Franco and Megan and the careful silence of people learning how to breathe again. 3 weeks had passed since the pier. Antonio's death had triggered exactly what Franco predicted, a bloody scramble for control of his territory. The Marchetti family absorbed some. Other families took pieces. Within 10 days, Antonio Calabrese's empire existed only in police reports and newspaper archives. Franco had watched it happen from a distance, then walked away completely. He dismantled what remained of his own operation methodically, paid out severance to his surviving people, transferred legitimate businesses to trusted managers, liquidated assets. By the time he was done, Franco Ravellini, the crime boss, had ceased to exist. What remained was just Franco. Tired, scarred, alive. Megan found him on the apartment's small balcony, watching the sunrise. Couldn't sleep? She asked. Haven't slept properly in 3 weeks. Franco's voice was quiet. Keep expecting someone to kick in the door, to finish what Antonio started. No one's coming. Megan handed him coffee. You made sure of that. I made sure of nothing, just delayed the inevitable. Franco sipped the coffee, grimacing. Someone will always come. That's how this works. Then we'll handle it, together. Franco looked at her. Really looked. Megan had changed too in these weeks. The hardness had softened slightly, replaced by something more complex. She still carried the weight, still had the edge, but she'd started smiling again, started sleeping without nightmares most nights, started healing. What are we doing here, Megan? Franco asked quietly. Playing house in a safe house, pretending we're normal people? We're not pretending. We're becoming. Megan leaned against the railing. You got out. Actually got out. How many people in your position can say that? And what did I get out to? This? Franco gestured at the anonymous apartment. Hiding? Waiting for the past to catch up? Building something new, something that's actually ours. Megan's voice was firm. You spent your whole life carrying your father's choices. I spent months being someone's possession. We're done with that. This is us choosing what comes next. And what does come next? Megan was quiet for a moment. Then, I've been thinking about going back to nursing, not full-time, maybe volunteer work, free clinic stuff. Franco raised an eyebrow. After everything, you want to go back to saving lives? I never stopped wanting that. I just got sidetracked by survival. Megan's smile was sad. But yeah, I want to do something that matters, something that isn't just about violence and revenge. And you think I can do the same? I think you can try. Megan turned to face him fully. The Franco I know, the one who pulled me out of that basement, who trusted me despite every reason not to, who chose to let Antonio live because killing him would have been too easy. That person isn't defined by violence. That person wants more. Franco's throat tightened. I don't know how to be anything else. Neither do I, but we can figure it out. Megan's hand found his. Together, like we've been doing. Franco looked down at their joined hands, scarred, blood-stained, but holding on anyway. Okay, he said quietly. We try. 6 months later, Megan stood in a small community clinic, stitching up a teenager who'd come in with a gash across his palm from a kitchen accident. The kid was nervous, talking too fast to cover his fear. It's okay, Megan said, her voice gentle. You're doing great. Just a few more stitches. The clinic was busy, always was on Saturdays. People who couldn't afford hospitals. People without insurance. People the system had forgotten. Megan had started volunteering 3 days a week. It wasn't much. Wasn't enough to balance the scales of what she'd done. But it was something. She finished the stitches, wrapped the kid's hand in clean gauze, and sent him on his way with instructions to keep it dry. Franco was waiting outside when her shift ended. He'd started teaching self-defense classes at the community center, free lessons for women, focusing on practical skills. It kept him busy, gave him purpose, helped him feel like he was building something instead of just destroying. They walked home together through the quiet neighborhood. Not the safe house anymore. They'd moved to a modest apartment with actual sunlight and neighbors who said hello. Small, normal, safe. "How was your day?" Franco asked. "Busy. Yours?" "Same. Had a new student, woman in her 50s. Her husband's been hitting her for years. She wants to know how to fight back." "You teach her?" "Taught her how to leave, how to protect herself while she does it, how to rebuild after." Franco's voice was quiet. "Sometimes the best fight is the one you don't have." Megan smiled. "You're getting soft." "Maybe." Franco's hand found hers. "Or maybe I'm just learning there's more than one way to be strong." They reached their building, climbed the stairs, unlocked the door to an apartment that smelled like the dinner Megan had prepped that morning in the slow cooker. Home. Not perfect. Not spotless. Still carrying the weight of everything that had brought them here. But theirs. Franco poured wine. Megan set the table. They ate slowly, talking about small things, clinic patients, self-defense students, the new Italian restaurant that had opened down the street. Ordinary things. Beautiful because they were ordinary. After dinner, they sat on the couch. Franco had found a documentary about marine biology that Megan found inexplicably soothing. They watched in comfortable silence, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. "Do you miss it?" Megan asked during a commercial break. "The power, the control, all of it." Franco considered the question. "Sometimes. Late at night, when I can't sleep, I think about what I could have done differently, how I could have held on to it all. And then I wake up next to you and remember why I let it go." Franco's voice was soft. "Power's empty, Megan. I spent 40 years accumulating it, and it never filled the hole. But this," he gestured at the apartment, at her, at the life they were building. "This is real. This matters." Megan turned to look at him. "No regrets?" "One." Franco's expression was serious. "That it took me so long to figure it out. That I wasted so many years chasing something that didn't matter. Those years made you who you are. Without them, you wouldn't have been there to pull me out of that basement." "True." Franco's hand came up, gentle on her cheek. "So maybe not a regret. Maybe just the long way around." Megan leaned into his touch. "The long way around to what?" "To this. To you. To something worth protecting that isn't just territory or reputation." Franco's thumb traced her cheekbone. "To peace." "We're not at peace, Franco. We're just on the other side of war." "Maybe that's the same thing." Megan kissed him, soft, careful, still learning how to be gentle with each other after everything. When they pulled apart, Franco rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said quietly. "I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, if it's too soon or too complicated or too—" "I love you too," Megan interrupted. "And yeah, it's complicated. Everything about us is complicated, but that doesn't make it less real." They stayed like that, wrapped around each other, while the documentary droned on about coral reefs and ocean currents. Two people who'd been broken by violence, learning to be whole again. Together. A year later, Megan walked into the community center and found Franco teaching a class of 15 women ranging from their 20s to their 60s. He was demonstrating a wrist escape, his movements controlled and precise. "The goal isn't to win a fight," he was saying. "It's to create an opening, to get away. You don't need to be stronger than your attacker. You just need to be smarter." One of the women, young, barely 20, raised her hand. "What if they have a weapon?" Franco's expression went serious. "Then you run. You scream. You do whatever it takes to survive and get help. No heroics. Your life is worth more than pride." The class ended. Women filed out, thanking Franco, some lingering to ask questions. Megan waited until the room cleared. "Good class," she said. Franco smiled. "Getting better. Finally figured out how to explain the hip throw without accidentally throwing someone." Progress. They walked to a nearby park, their routine after his Wednesday classes. Sat on a bench overlooking a pond where ducks paddled and children played. "I got a letter today," Megan said. "From Marco." Franco stiffened slightly. "How is he?" "Good. He's in Montana, working as a security consultant. Legitimate stuff. Said to tell you thanks for the severance package. He earned it. He asked if we'd visit sometime. Franco was quiet for a moment. What did you say? That I'd ask you. Megan studied his face. Would you want to? See him again? I don't know. Franco's voice was uncertain. That life feels like a different person, someone I used to be. He's not that life, he's just Marco. A man who stood by you when it mattered. Who killed for me. Who survived with you. Megan's hand found Franco's. You don't have to cut everyone out just because you're building something new. Some bridges are worth keeping. Franco looked at their joined hands. You're too smart for me. I know. He laughed, a real laugh, warm and unguarded. Fine, we'll visit. But if he starts talking about the old days, we changed the subject, I know. Megan leaned against his shoulder. We're not those people anymore. No, Franco agreed, we're not. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the park's small ecosystem of life continue around them. Children shrieking on swings, dogs chasing frisbees, couples walking hand in hand, normal, peaceful, worth fighting for. Megan, Franco said quietly, I've been thinking about something. Yeah? About making this official, you and me. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it to reveal a simple silver band. Nothing fancy, no diamonds, just permanent. Megan's breath caught. Franco, I know we're not traditional. I know we built this on blood and violence and trauma. But we survived. We chose each other when we could have chosen to walk away. That means something. Franco's voice was rough with emotion. You mean something, everything, and I want whatever time I have left to be spent with you. Megan looked at the ring, at Franco, at the man who'd saved her life and then taught her how to save her own. Yes, she said simply. Franco's smile was brighter than she'd ever seen it. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, and pulled her close. We'll do it simple, he murmured against her hair. Courthouse, no big ceremony, just us and maybe Marco if he wants to fly out. Perfect. They kissed there in the park, two people scarred by their pasts, building something fragile and real from the ashes. Chits. The wedding happened 3 months later. Courthouse ceremony, like Franco promised. Marco flew in and stood as Franco's witness. Megan asked one of the nurses from the clinic, a woman named Sarah who'd become a friend, to stand for her. The ceremony lasted 10 minutes. They said vows they'd written themselves, simple promises about choosing each other, about building something that mattered, about facing whatever came next together. Franco slipped a matching silver band onto his own finger. The judge pronounced them married. They kissed, and it felt like a beginning instead of an ending. The reception was dinner at the Italian restaurant down the street. Just the four of them, wine and pasta and stories that carefully avoided the darkest chapters. Marco proposed a toast to Franco and Megan, who proved that sometimes the best revenge is living well. They drank to that. Later, back at the apartment, Franco and Megan stood on the balcony looking out at the city lights. Happy? Franco asked. Yeah. Megan leaned into him. Surprised, but happy. Surprised that we made it here, that we survived everything and still wanted this. Megan turned to face him. There were a lot of moments where I thought we wouldn't. So did I. Franco's arms wrapped around her. But we're stubborn and lucky. And together, Franco kissed her forehead. That's the part that matters. They went inside, to the small apartment that was now officially theirs, to the bed they shared, to the life they'd carved out of darkness. And for the first time in longer than either could remember, sleep came easy, dreamless, peaceful, safe. 5 years later. Megan wiped sweat from her forehead, adjusting her scrubs. The clinic had expanded, from a volunteer operation to a full nonprofit with 3 locations. She'd gone back to school, gotten certified, and now ran the whole operation. Franco had done the same with the self-defense program. It had grown into a network of classes across the state, all free, all focused on practical skills and survivor empowerment. He traveled twice a month to train new instructors. They'd built something real, something that helped people, something that mattered. Megan locked up the clinic and headed home. The apartment had been replaced 2 years ago with a small house. 2 bedrooms, a yard, room to breathe. They'd talked about kids, decided against it. Their lives were full enough. Franco was in the kitchen when she arrived, cooking something that smelled like garlic and rosemary. "Good day?" he asked. "Long day." "Good, though." Megan kicked off her shoes, padding into the kitchen to wrap her arms around him from behind. Treated 43 patients. 3 of them asked about job programs. I connected them with that placement service you found. Good. Franco stirred the pot, his free hand covering hers. I had 12 women in class today. One of them finally worked up the courage to leave her husband. We set her up with a shelter and a lawyer. Team effort. Always is. They ate dinner on the back porch, watching fireflies emerge in the gathering dusk. The conversations had evolved over the years, less about survival, more about impact, about the people they'd helped, about the community they'd built, about the future they were still creating. Do you ever think about them? Megan asked. Aldrich, Antonio, all of it. Franco was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes, less now than I used to. It's like looking at someone else's life. I get that. Megan's hand found his across the table. Sometimes I try to remember what it felt like in that basement, the fear, the hopelessness, and I can't quite access it anymore, like it happened to a different person. It did happen to a different person. You're not her anymore. Neither are you. The man who walked into that warehouse to kill Antonio, he's gone too. Good riddance. Franco squeezed her hand. I prefer who I am now. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened and the fireflies danced. I got an email today, Franco said eventually, from someone you might remember, Dr. Conte's daughter. Megan stiffened. What did she want? To tell me she understood, that her father had made his choice, and it wasn't my fault. Franco's voice was careful. She's in medical school now, wants to work in underserved communities, said her father's death and his mistakes taught her the importance of choosing the right side. How do you feel about that? Complicated. Franco looked out at the darkness. I killed her father. No amount of understanding changes that, but I'm glad she's not letting it destroy her. You didn't just kill her father, Franco. You stopped a traitor who would have gotten more people killed. There's a difference. Is there? Franco met her eyes. At what point does the justification stop mattering and it's just blood on your hands? When you stop questioning it, when you stop caring about the difference. Megan's voice was firm. You're not that person. You never were. Franco held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. Okay? Okay, I believe you. They cleared dinner together, washed dishes, did the small domestic tasks that made up their life now. Later, in bed, Franco pulled Megan close. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For pulling me out of my own basement, for showing me there was another way. Franco's voice was rough. For not giving up on me even when I'd given up on myself. Megan turned to face him in the darkness. We saved each other. That's how this works. Yeah. Franco kissed her gently. We did. They fell asleep wrapped around each other. The shadows of the past finally faded to something manageable. 2 people who'd been forged in darkness, who'd chosen light, who'd built something beautiful from the wreckage. 10 years after the basement, Megan stood at a podium, addressing a room full of donors and supporters. The clinic network had expanded to 12 locations. The self-defense program operated in 3 states. Together, they'd helped thousands of people, survivors of violence, people rebuilding their lives, communities that had been forgotten by everyone else. None of this would exist, Megan said, her voice steady, without the support of people like you. People who believe that everyone deserves a second chance, a way forward, hope when everything seems hopeless. She caught Franco's eye in the crowd. He was standing in the back, dressed in a simple suit, smiling with quiet pride. 10 years ago, Megan continued, I was someone else, someone who'd lost everything. But I learned that you don't stay lost if someone's willing to pull you out of the dark. And then you learn to do the same for others. That's what we're doing here, pulling people out, giving them tools, showing them they're not alone. The applause was warm, genuine. After the event, Franco drove them home through streets they knew by heart now. Good speech, he said. I meant every word. Megan looked at him. We did this. Built something that'll outlast us. Feels strange, leaving a legacy that isn't just destruction. Feels right. Megan's hand covered his on the gear shift. This is who we were always supposed to be. We just took the long way getting here. Franco pulled into their driveway. The house lights were on. They'd started leaving them on, a small comfort against old fears. Inside, Franco poured wine. Megan kicked off her heels. They settled onto the couch, exhausted but content. You know what I realized today? Megan said. What? I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. Not just surviving or getting by. Happy. Franco pulled her close. Me too. Think it'll last? I think we'll fight like hell to make sure it does. Megan smiled against his shoulder. Good answer. They sat there in the quiet house, two people who'd survived the unsurvivable, who'd chosen each other in the aftermath, who'd built a life worth living from ashes and blood and stubborn hope. The past would always be there. Scars didn't disappear, memories didn't fade completely, but they'd learned to carry it, together, and that made all the difference. Outside, the night was peaceful, the neighborhood quiet, the world turning with indifference to their story. But in this house, in this moment, Franco and Megan had something precious. Each other. Tomorrow. A future they'd earned with blood and sacrifice and the simple, radical choice to keep going, to keep building, to keep believing that people could change, that darkness didn't have to be permanent, that love, messy and complicated and born from trauma, could still be real, could still be enough. And as they sat together in the soft lamplight, scarred but whole, broken but healing, they knew one final truth. They'd survived the worst the world could throw at them. Everything else was just living. And they were finally beautifully good at it.